If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. With that, we'll move to item 2.0, approval of today's agenda.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second? It's been first and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is passed. Item 3.0, approval of the minutes from June 10th, 2024. Do I have a motion? We have a second?
Second.
It's been motioned and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All in favor say aye. I'm sorry. Anybody opposed? Any questions on the motion?
Do we have the correct amount of time that the meeting lasted in the minutes?
I'd have to defer that to staff. Where is that listed?
It's under item 10. It should be 718, not 518.
Okay. So with that,
Do I need to make a motion to?
we need to amend the motion. Yep.
You can make a motion to approve subject to that correction.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes have passed. I believe, before we move on to public comment, Commissioner Kornick, you mentioned an opportunity for commissioners to recuse themselves. But I believe, and legal help me with this, we're just going to leave this to the commissioners to speak up as the item comes up if they need to recuse themselves on the item.
So in the ethics presentation that we did a few weeks ago, or maybe it was last month, among the many other things we did last month, I think our preference is actually for persons who are going to recuse themselves to speak up at the very beginning and mention that, you know, immediately upon the agenda being approved. I mean, I think following the agenda being approved, we thought was the kind of the good timing to see, you know, if you could maybe just sort of generally ask, does anyone need to recuse themselves from any matters on this agenda?
So
But it's not required that you ask that, but it just helps jog people's memory if they do have something like that, so that they can mention it at the right time.
Okay. So at this point, is there any items that any commissioners would like to identify that they would need to recuse themselves on? If not, we'll move forward with public comment. There are two individuals that have signed up. Jake, for item 6.2, we'll be sure to call you up. Is there any, and I'm Ray, I believe it is. Please.
I'd like to sign up for public comment as well. I'm councilperson who's still come here on the Ridgeway item as well as Lebanon Road.
Okay, Ray, if you don't mind coming forward. We'll limit your time to 2 minutes for public comment. Please state your name for the record, and feel free, hit the red button on the, there's a button that'll turn red. There you go. Please state your name for the record, please.
My name is Rafaela Cohane. I use Ray because it's easier for most people. But I'm here about the parking here in Nashville, all seeming to need a QR code or having a QR code. This is my phone. I don't have a smartphone, so I am limited and practically can't park anywhere because I don't have an ability to take the QR code and park my car. So I'm feeling a little discriminated against in my own city. And so I was wondering why we are changing all the parking. They even changed all the parking on my street. I live at 117 30th Avenue North. Took away all the meters, and now we have signs with QR codes. I've also seen all over next door complaints about these parking companies that you have approved, hired, whatever. So my question to this committee is, does anybody monitor them? Does anybody park and see what they're doing? Because I've seen complaints on next door in my own neighborhood where they're charging them $70. They're sending them fines. They're sending them all kinds of notices. So I can't do that. So what accommodation is there, or what remediation is there for me? That's my question.
Thank you for that. Any comment from the commissioners?
I was going to defer to staff as we develop this contract with going to our new meter system, what accommodations we are making for people with flip phones or people that don't own smartphones.
Diana Alarcone, NDOT, and I'll speak to that since I was here when all of that kicked in. But we do have meters on the street. I'm going to grab the address and check and see if we just did e-commerce in the area. But we can look at putting in a meter so that someone who does not have access can actually pay the meter versus having to worry about paying through e-commerce, which would be through their cell phone, through an app, or something along that line. So I will get her address and follow up on that, because you'll be able to pay a meter.
So, Director, as she's traveling around town, is that going to be in, like, if she's on 12th South somewhere, or if she's downtown somewhere? How do we know when people don't have access?
So when the enforcement folks come through, they would actually, the LPR system would pick up their tag, and it would actually give them a ding that note that they had not paid, either through e-commerce or the meter. We do have meters throughout the entire city. It's just we do not have a meter per space. But usually there's a meter on the block that they have to walk to. We try not to leave e-commerce alone. Even though almost 98% of our sales is through e-commerce, we only have 2% is either falling through paying the meter or paying through the app, through text. Most of it is actually being paid for through the QR code or paying through the app. So 98% of our business is being done that way. But I can check, but we try to make sure that there is a meter in that location, in that area. It's just not going to be per space. So I'll verify and make sure we didn't mess up and take a look at that if we need to add a meter, because maybe it might be out of the way. But we try not to put e-commerce by itself. We may have a street that's e-commerce, but the next street over has a meter that they would be able to pay.
Are those like a different color or easy to identify?
The meters?
The ones that that are not driven by smartphones and apps and cue card. I mean, how am I going to know what that meter is?
So the sign, there is actually typically a sign that will say, and we'll verify that as well, it'll say pay the meter. It may not show where the meter's at, but it'll say you can use the QR code or pay the meter, so that if you do not have the smartphone ability to use, it is telling you to use the meter if you don't. And so, like I said, we're pretty much trying to make sure we put a meter on every block that is visible. But if there isn't one on a particular block, or maybe it's the block over, they can actually go over to that and feed the meter, and it'll work just as good.
Oh, the council people, and and people, like our citizen here, have access to communicate with you and say, and it'd be helpful to have one on this
Yeah.
church street or whatever.
We recommend Hub Nashville, the 311. That's the best way to let us know if we've missed something. If they could just go into Hub Nashville and let us know, or call 311 and say, hey, I have no way of paying for parking, and I need to park on street. There's no meter here, blah, 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 blah. We would be able then to go out and take a really quick look to see if we need to add a meter.
My last question is, are people that do have access to QR codes and smartphones, are they going to be penalized if they take up that parking space for someone who doesn't?
No, ma'am. So it's actually accessible to everyone, and so you just have different payment options. If you remember before, when we had the actual meters, the only way you could pay was by coin. So now you actually have the ability to pay by credit card, and you can do that through the QR code. You can do that through the app. You can do that by texting. You can actually go to the meter and actually pay for it by credit card at the meter as well, or you can still pay for it by coin at the meter itself. So we just really added more payment options than anything.
Yes, Councilwoman.
I think it might be helpful to clarify too that the meter is not for a designated space, but for the whole area. So it's a lot like a parking lot where you go if you're
Thank you,
going
yes.
a pay station. Council has described it. So I think maybe it might be helpful on the education front going forward to talk about it as the pay station.
Correct.
So that folks aren't expecting a meter at a designated spot.
Place. Correct. Thank you. I'll change my terminology.
I think too that it's my understanding, Director, that Metro is getting blamed for things that private parking lots are doing. It's my understanding you have no control over what people are doing with accessing somebody for $75.
I do not. Our actual fee, if you fail to pay, is $26. And then there is a $44 court fee that is added to that because every citation that is written goes directly to the courts. So it is a $70 fee overall. But our actual fee is only $26.
The people that are private companies that you know, not regulated or owned by
Correct.
Metro, if somebody calls or contacts Hub Nashville, where do we send those people to complain about what's happened to them?
So if it happens on a private lot, you can still send it to Hub. It comes to us. We do share that out with the private companies when we hear the complaints. I just want to share, as of July 1st, though, there was a new state statute that went into effect. And Teresa, if I say something wrong here, jump in and help me. But in essence, the state statute changed the rules for booting and also for towing for private lots. So the private lots have to do a lot in order to be able to boot. For example, they have to do it with their own company. They can no longer use a third-party company. They have to have it signed a certain way in order to boot or tow. There's a lot of new regulations that they must follow in order to be able to do so. Just driving around over the past weekend, didn't find a lot that had met that. So really, as of July 1st, we shouldn't really see much of the booting or the towing coming from a private facility. I do know that a lawsuit has been filed. I don't know where it is right now, but that particular state statute may end up coming to a halt. It may not. So we're just kind of waiting on pins and needles, as I think a lot of the private sector as well. But, and yes, ma'am, you are correct. They have new rules that they have to use and follow when it comes to, but in the past, they were allowed to charge the fee for the paid parking. So let's say it was $22 to park on the lot. You can pay that fee, then there's a $75 boot fee, and then there could be a fine fee. So you could be stuck paying up to $150 if you fail to pay the first time. And I think the state statute, I know the state statute changes that round quite a bit. And again, that went into effect July 1st. So I think everybody pretty much had a weekend that it didn't happen. I didn't hear of much booting and towing occurring over the weekend. So I think it's a little bit different, and I think we're waiting on to find out what the courts tell us to do before we really start implementing any of the new requirements for the private sector. But as of right now, that's the new state statute that we will be following. And I didn't see anyone booting or towing this weekend, and I have not seen any of the new requirements go into place. And I did drive around pretty significantly throughout Davidson County to see if anybody was following it, and I didn't see that. Did I miss anything, Teresa?
No, you're exactly right.
Perfect.
So the plaintiff in the lawsuit that you're referring to that's been filed has requested a temporary restraining order to prevent the legislation from going into force. So we are not yet aware as to what decision the court has made with regard to that request at this time.
Any other questions? Thank you, Director. With that, we'll move on to item 5.0, approval of the consent agenda. It's my understanding there are a couple items that we need to pull out and have a motion to defer on. That is item 5.5 and 5.8. Are there any other items on the consent agenda that we need to pull out?
I'd like to also pull 5.7 just to be consistent.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Is that the Lebanon Road, the change of,
The speed limit, 5.8? Yes.
I didn't know which number it was.
Yes, we're going to pull that one out. I want to get a motion to approve the rest of them under the consent, and then we'll approach 5.5, 5.7, and 5.8 individually. Okay? Yes, sir. Commissioner Gibbs.
I think we should look at 5.4 as well.
Okay. So for the record, we're pulling 5.4, 5.5, 5.7, and 5.8. So I would request a motion to approve the consent agenda items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.6, 5.9, and 5.10. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Well, hold tight. I need to read each one of them, Ms. Costones. Okay. Hold on that. So 5.1 is a mandatory referral for 2024M005AB-001, requesting abandonment of a portion of alley number 442 right-of-way. Is requested by Bard's Civil Associates. Item 5.2, mandatory referral 2023M008AB-001, requesting abandonment of a portion of alley number 187 and Brown Street right-of-way, requested by Bard Civil and Associates. 5.3, authorization for a new traffic signal at Murfreesboro Pike, Hickory Woods Drive, requested by NDOT. 5.6, authorization for vehicle size restrictions, no trucks over 8 tons, on Fern Avenue from Brick Church Pike to Weekly Avenue, and on Weekly Avenue from Brick Church Pike to Baptist World Center Drive, requested by NDOT. Item 5.9, authorization for new turn restriction, no U-turns for all approaches on Thompson Lane, Briley Parkway, and East Thompson Lane and South Lake Drive, requested by NDOT. And item 5.10, authorization to revoke abandoned valet lane at 153rd Avenue South, and approval of new pay parking requested by NDOT. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any questions? It is passed. Okay. So now we'll go to item 5.4, authorization for a new traffic signal at Una Antioch Pike, Blue Hole Road, and Una Antioch Pike, Hickory Hollow Parkway, requested by NDOT. Staff, would you like to speak to this?
NDOT had a signal warrant analysis performed for this pair of intersections that are separated by a railroad. And the signal warrant analysis determined that this actual pair of intersections did meet the volume warrants for 8-hour, 4-hour, and peak hour. And we're recommending construction of a new traffic signal at this location. They very likely would function, with a combined controller, and basically there'd be a railroad preemption in between it. We don't have information about the design because we haven't gotten to that point yet, but.
State your name for the record, please.
Yeah, this is Brad Freese, Deputy Director of the Nashville Department of Transportation. Just to add on to what Andrew said, this has historically been a dangerous intersection with the location of the CSX crossing there. This is obviously going to be a safety improvement overall, and it will be in coordination with CSX and the preemption with regard to the railroad crossing.
Go ahead.
Two questions. One, is this an active railroad area?
Yes, sir, it is.
And are there crossings, gates there?
There are not crossing gates there currently.
Why?
That is something that we can consider as part of this project.
That was my concern.
As a safety mitigation.
Yes.
Yes, that's a good question.
So when determining a traffic signal, you said a traffic study was done. Is there additional data that would trigger gate crossings as well? Or what's the determination around what type of traffic signaling is chosen?
It's really, gate crossings are part of a prerequisite that are used especially when you have a quiet zone at a location. They actually require gates as part of that to do a quiet zone where you're trying to prevent the trains from actually blowing the horn at those crossings. But no, it's based on sight lines and the locations of the crossings. If there's clear sight lines and enough advance notice, it does not always warrant a gate crossing gates, but that is something that we can look at as part of an enhancement of safety at this location.
I'd like to add that the signal warrant analysis helps you determine whether the signal itself is warranted. Once it's warranted, then the design considerations have to look at on-the-site conditions to see, hey, are there external factors like a rail crossing where we need to put in, gates and other railroad enhancements.
So is this an area where the railroad traffic is at a reduced speed?
Yes, I do believe so. It is. They are required at certain crossings. I do believe they are required to break speed at this location, but I don't have that information currently. I can provide it after this meeting to confirm.
I really think these are things that we need to know as to, I agree that there needs to be traffic control there, but when I saw this, I was more concerned about the fact that someone could get hit by a train.
Right.
Where's the proposed new traffic signal going to be located? At the railroad tracks or at each intersection?
At each intersection, bracketing the road tracks.
So you're putting two signals in also. So with the gate arms would sync within those traffic?
They would, yes.
To keep flow, okay.
Absolutely.
I guess with the gate arm addition to your concern, Ms. Constones, how would we need to proceed with a motion on this?
Well, it is not an area in which I have expertise. I believe, and I'll look to Brad to confirm this, that whether or not to put gates in is also really an issue of federal regulations, like whether they are merited, and so that it may be beyond the control of NDOT or this commission. But I'm sure that they can at least look into it.
Yes, we will.
Any other questions on this item?
I mean, I think that if we're not satisfied, and I think I might not be, because if we have lights there, then suddenly you're stopping traffic on a railroad. And that's where really we have trouble with
Oh,
folks
yes.
the most on railroads, right? It's like you've got a red light and the police
Absolutely.
too close and there's nowhere to go.
Yes,
So could we maybe
correct.
defer this 1 month and get a little bit more clarity on the railroad issue?
sure. We could, absolutely, but any design, I mean, this has not been designed yet, so any design would incorporate the railroad, and we would actually address those concerns as part of the sequencing and the timing, so no cars are actually stuck on the railroad. It would have to be cleared out, and that would be part of the preemption system that would be required as part of federal guidelines and working with the CSX Railroad. They actually require that, and they already require that as part of the their guidelines, federal guidelines, when in relation to a traffic signal. So that it would be coordinated with the signal, absolutely, to prevent such circumstances like you just mentioned.
So am I understanding then that you're asking us to approve this with it and with the communication going on with the federal government? Is that really what we're asking for here in order to get the
This,
signal,
yes,
get the
this would allow
traffic
us,
signals there?
correct, this would allow us to move forward with the design in coordination with the CSX and other stakeholders involved. So we would move to the next step to issue the engineering design.
So I've heard two things here from this body. One, a potential deferral to just get a better understanding of what the options are here, and then a potential motion to move forward, a motion to approve to move forward with the design. So,
Yeah, I would lean towards the deferral too, just to maybe see some examples of how this works, even if there is no gate. Obviously this is a design that should be done somewhere. So maybe just to see some examples of this 2 light, 1 controller, having the railroad in the middle, see if that works well somewhere that we could kind of visualize it a little bit better. And
Good
that
question.
way we'd have a little bit more information to kind of approve it.
So I will add, I just checked the location. Again, this location does actually have a gate and flashing lights. So there is already a gate present, but in the future, it would be in coordination, it would be coordinated with the preemption of a signal.
I'd also like to add that it's currently exists as an all-way stop. Technically, it's a 3-way stop, but it's all stop controlled right now. So the signal would enhance safety at this location.
thanks for that. I think the consensus is, as long as things are in unison, that they're working together at this intersection, is pretty busy, adding 2 traffic signals and then tying it in with the design of the gate arms is critical. Do we have a motion on the item or additional questions? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, if there's a gate, that kind of, I feel more comfortable approving today, check in with some of our other.
There is an existing railroad signal and gate arms.
Yeah, I would be okay approving today.
I could make a motion if we're ready.
Would love it, yes. Go ahead.
I make a motion that we move forward with what Metro is asking us to do on the agenda.
Second.
It's been first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any questions on the motion? It is passed. With that, we'll move on to item 5.5. It's been requested that we defer this item 1 month. Is that correct, staff?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Do I have a motion to defer 1 month?
So moved.
Second? Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So item 5.7, authorization to reduce posted speed limits on Dickerson Pike from Berry Street to Dry Creek Road, requested by NDOT staff. Would you like to present on this item?
NDOT has evaluated is currently evaluating the pikes within Nashville, and this is one of the first ones we would like to present to you. We looked at, this is 5.7, so we looked at the route all the way from Spring Street up Dickerson Pike, all the way to the city limits with the city of Goodlettsville. That's at Dry Creek Road. And we have some recommendations to reduce speed limits as shown from Spring Street to Douglas. Douglas Avenue is on one side and Legon is on the other. We're asking to reduce the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 40, from 40 to 30. From Douglas and Legon Avenue, that same intersection, all the way up to Skyline Commons, we're asking to reduce the speed limit from 40 to 35 miles per hour. From Skyline Commons up to Old Hooker Boulevard, we're asking to reduce the speed limit from 45 to 40. And then from Old Hooker Boulevard up to Dry Creek Road, we're asking to lower the posted speed limit from 50 miles an hour to 45 miles an hour. We have looked at the speeds along this road, and usually, in the past, we've looked at the 85th percentile speed to kind of help the tools that we have to come up with recommended speed limits. We're also looking at the 50th percentile speed limit, or the 50th percentile speed, as well as the recorded crash histories along this location and other vulnerable users along the corridor. And what we found, I'd like to point out some of the highlights from the study that we have. Some of the key takeaways is that the yearly trend from 2018 to 2022 showed a slight decrease in overall crashes along Dickerson Pike, but that's the good news. However, there were a total of 61 pedestrian crashes with an upward trend in crash frequency. We found that speed-related crashes showed an upward trend from 2018 to 2021, but dropped a little bit in 2022. We saw a significant upward trend in fatal and serious injury crashes, and of the 81 fatal and serious injury crashes, 26 were pedestrian-related, and that's 32% of those fatal and serious injury crashes. We found that these pedestrian fatal and serious injury crashes spiked since 2020, and with that, we would like to lower the posted speed limit along this corridor.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
I think this is a great idea, especially with pedestrian safety. How are people who have driven this road for years going to understand? Are we going to get like any flashing signals or the new speed is? Or I know some of the police here probably have some suggestions about that, but any way to save pedestrian lives is great.
With the change in signage, we can install temporary speed feedback signs, and we have capability of putting some radar trailers to indicate to folks, hey, here's the static speed limit and here's your speed.
Two questions. One, with these items, is the public asked for comment or given an opportunity to speak to this? And secondly, are council members advised of it, and if so, how?
So good afternoon, Diana. Sorry about that. So these speed studies are part of our Vision Zero initiatives, and Dickerson has been identified on a high injury network. And we've had a significant amount of crashes that have occurred that have actually led to death in pedestrian traffic. One of the things we did not do well this time around was to have conversations with the appropriate council members as to the input and have input back from them about the reduction of the speed limit. So actually, when we get to the next item, we're actually going to ask for a 1-month deferral so that we can actually have the conversation with the council member as well as with some of their community members that have some concerns. We do have conversations with businesses along the way about any concerns that they have, but we do know that reducing the speed will actually help with increasing retail because people have a chance to see. But it also create a lot of pedestrian safety. But we did not do the appropriate community outreach this time around, especially on the second item. So that's why we're going to be asking for a deferral. But we're having a lot of conversation, and we continue to have a lot of conversation about Dickerson and the amount of crashes that are occurring and deaths that are occurring along Dickerson. that this was not a surprise at all to the community. It was actually something the community had asked us that led us to do it. And so one of the initiatives that we recently did out on Dickinson was actually a temporary improvement where we actually kind of drew in a crosswalk. We built a pedestrian refuge area so that it would slow people down, so that especially where we've had a crash of multiple pedestrians being hit. So on Dickerson, I feel like there was appropriate community outreach and discussion. On the second item that's coming before you next, we did not do as good of a job in the communication that we should have. So thank you.
Any other questions?
I know I was the one who mentioned this one to pull off, and I think it would be appropriate just from let's give everybody a second opportunity to just see this again, talk through it. I'm generally very supportive of reducing these speed limits. I think it's really important. I think there's a lot of other improvements that we are doing and continue to do and can look at as well. But I would probably want to move for a deferral on this one too, just for 1 month, just to make sure it goes out in front of people to look at again. Just so they are aware, not necessarily input, just a more education of here, this is coming. And
Councilperson Eastlick, I'm speaking about the next one, but these two are related in the fact that they are Vision Zero driven. And Vision Zero, I know the initiative is to have 0 fatalities by 2030. But if you look at the data from 2018 through 2023, we've gone from 80 fatalities to 140. We're going in the wrong direction. And lowering the speed limit 5 miles an hour in certain places isn't really going to make a big difference to change this number from increasing by 12.5% every year to a reduction. We need more enforcement in our traffic laws, and the traffic stops have gone down from over 200,000 in 2018 to just over 28,000 in 2023. So I don't believe this initiative has a chance until we get better buy-in from MNPD to make more traffic stops to curtail speeding. So going around different streets, lowering the speed limit by 5 miles an hour isn't going to get this done. We need better enforcement, better buy-in, or we're just putting an arbitrary number up with an unattainable goal.
thank you. Can staff speak to our trend this year in terms of pedestrian fatalities?
So if the Vision Zero actually kicked off in October of 2022, thank you very much. So when we actually did a comparison of the prior, so 21-22 was our baseline. So when we actually did a year-over-year comparison from October and September of 2022-23, we actually had a reduction. We actually saw a reduction in severe crashes and fatal crashes, 3% in fatal crashes. And pedestrian-related crashes, we actually had a 7% decrease. And as well as in single vehicle crashes, we actually saw a drop of 5%. What we didn't see a decrease in was actually the number of bicycle crashes that occurred. That actually had an increase. So that area is one area we really focused in. We also, crashes where speed limits were actually greater than 35 miles per hour because we were actually reducing those speed limits. We actually saw a 12% decrease in the number of crashes that were occurring. I'll also just share real quick, studies have shown that by reducing the speed limit, and I do agree with the council member, I do feel that we need more enforcement, and I think that's why PD is really pushing hard to add additional folks to their staff so that they can get out there and do the enforcement. But studies have shown by reducing the speed limit actually reduces the survival rate for a pedestrian being struck by a car. So if a pedestrian is actually hit by a car at 40 miles per hour, there's a 95% chance that they're going to die. And then when you get down to where if they're hit at a speed limit of 10 miles per hour, they actually have a 15% of not having serious injury. So their chance of survival with less serious injury actually increases very dramatically with the reduction in speed. I think what's really important with these two items is that and this is from my professional history and that we've done, is that when we are actually asking for speed study reductions, we're also looking at signal timing. And what we're doing with the signal timing is we're looking at that signal timing actually run with the speed that we're setting on the roadway. So if you are actually doing the speed limit, you're going to have a better chance of catching more greens through the intersection. So you're going to get to point A to point B faster than if you were speeding from one to the other, then you would be catching every single red light. So there is a lot that goes into this. It's not just one thing or the other, but I'm more than happy to defer this and have the conversation. We have had lots of conversation with the community out on Dickerson. As I said, this was actually something that they brought to us. We've been in communication with Walk Bike and shared this with them. They're actually very favorable to it as well. But I have no problem taking this back out to the community and having the conversation one more time. I think it's, the more conversations, the better. So I'm more than happy to do that. But thank you for that opportunity.
One other question.
Yes, sir.
What would be the feasibility of changing the speed limit all the way around to 35 miles an hour?
So by doing the studies are really important, and we have a certain responsibility of setting the speed based on what folks are traveling or what is reasonable per the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And that's kind of what is referred to in lawsuits and in law cases and stuff like that. So when the engineering team is looking at this, they're establishing it to that so that we have an appropriate defense to head up against if we're sued, and we do get sued. So we want to make sure that we, as the council member mentioned, not just throw up an arbitrary number. These numbers have been looked at and clearly defined by our engineers as reasonable and fit within the warranting requirements for the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, that we're not going to create more safety issues. We're actually improving safety issues. And granted, the safety issue is geared more toward the most vulnerable users on our roadway, which is our pedestrian and our bicycles. It's important that that's why I mentioned this, the signal timing. It's important that we're doing it both, that we can encourage that slower traffic, get people from point to point A quicker, because they'll get less red lights, they'll get more green, and they can get where they're going. And as I said, from personal experience, we did this in another city I was in, and we actually got a lot of compliments because people who followed the speed limit were getting from A to B quicker, and they were getting home quicker, and they were reporting back to us the improvement of being able to move through the intersections and not getting stuck at every red light. So I think another educational round is not going to hurt whatsoever for us to have that conversation with the community.
Next question.
Do you want to go? You sure? Okay. I want to thank you for doing this work. This has been called for by the community for years. It's an incredibly unsafe road. As somebody who cycled here today, I would not ride my bike on Dickerson Pike, but I rode it all around downtown Nashville safely today because cars go more slowly. And what we do know is the data is very clear that 5 miles an hour can make a difference in whether or not somebody survives, and if they survive, what their quality of life is after. It doesn't always seem intuitive, but they actually get there faster. And if something happens on the way, everybody is safer, particularly pedestrians, cyclists, and our children, because let's not forget that this is one of the top causes of death of children in the United States as well. So that speed really, really matters there. If the department feels that more education is necessary, certainly I think that is important, and I would defer to the department on that, but this is one in particular where the community has been calling for it for a long time. And I think it might be helpful, Director, because Dickerson is a state road, just a little bit of maybe education today on what we can do on a state road, since we are a little limited, but speed is one thing that we can change and control. And I think sometimes we think the perfect is the enemy of the good, right? But like, this is good and we can do it where we can't always do the perfect.
So thank you for that question, Councilmember. Since this is a state road, we have to take these studies and analysis and have TDOT approve it. We cannot just blanketly go out and adjust the speed limits. We have to have that conversation. Their engineers actually take our data, run the analysis as well to make sure that they can justify it. Even though they're going to turn the liability and responsible over to us, they still carry some liability because it's their state road. So we, on these type of segments, we cannot move forward without not TDOT already approving the initiative to actually look at these speed reductions and also signal timing improvements. So this is done in partnership with the Department of Transportation at Tennessee State. Thank you.
I agree with what the council member said. Having driven down that road, and it seems like if people wanted to drive faster, There's an easy access to Ellington Parkway, if I remember quick, if you want to get faster from A to B. But, I have been hearing movement in this direction, and I'm not on the council, but about what the merchants want. So I have no problem approving it today.
Shoot.
If there's enough community buy-in, I think, that can help change my mind. The one thing I did want to clarify is, we had talked about where the demarcation of speed limits are. And I think one area that if we do approve, I'd like to add this in there as just language to be, where Hunter's Lane High School is. I think that the speed limit is already 45 miles an hour, 700 feet past Hunter's Lane. And so if we're going to reduce the majority of the speed from 45 down to 40, and that's from Skylines to Old Hickory, I'd like to make that the 700 foot past Hunter's Lane is 40.
I wrote that down so thank you for that. Just one other thing, if I could, Mr. Chair, is we will do tremendous community outreach before we actually make the change in the signals. In the speed limit, letting the community know that it's coming, what date, and what to look for, so it's not just a surprise and, we're here. So we will be doing a lot of community engagement to inform the community as well that we're moving forward with it.
That was gonna be a part of my question. I know, is it school zones 25 miles an hour?
School zones are 15.
So, because there's the Rocket schools down there too, right?
Yeah.
And there's
So
a crosswalk right there, so like, the schools up and down through this corridor, how are we addressing
So
that?
just real quick, let me share with you, they will be signed accordingly that during school hours that they're actually following the required 15 miles per hour. But also our council approved for us, thank you very much, council member, on a lot of these major pikes where we actually have a speeding issue, we were given some dollars in the supplement budget last year to go in and make improvements to a couple of the school zones. There's 15 of them that are actually currently underway getting done. And then in this last budget process, we were given an additional 1.5 million that we're going to use toward continuing to make those improvements to really make the school zone stand out with the 15 mile per hour zone. And there is flashing lights that come on that indicate you must be moving at 15 miles per hour. So we'll be making some additional improvements as we move through this. Our goal is in the next 5 years to hit every school in Davidson County, so it's safe for our kids.
So where does this corridor fall into the timing of that, do we know?
I do not know off the top of my head, I apologize, but I can get that back to you. But I can tell you it will be signed and it will have flashing lights that say 15 miles per hour.
Good. Were you gonna say something?
Yes, I can confirm.
Thank goodness.
This,
A couple of points of clarification just on the chart and then the segment. So segment 1, on your chart, it says the speed limit's 30 and it's proposed to be 30, but down there it says posted as 40 and suggested 30. What is it currently in segment 1? Is it 40 or 30?
It says 30 on the chart, and the recommended is 30, so I'm not making any.
So no change, so it's just,
changes there.
That's the next one.
under the segment 1, it's wrong?
No, it says the speed limit under segment 1 says the current speed limit is 30 and we're recommending it stay at 30. But the second segment, which is from Berry Street to Douglas, is at 40 and we're recommending that it actually be reduced to 30.
I'm talking about the map. They need to match.
Oh, yes, then I would say the chart is correct.
Okay, the chart's correct,
Yeah.
but the map, okay.
Thank you.
And then, these point 3.3 in segment 4, is there, seems like a short span, and I believe that's coming off the interstate there and then going up. Could we go ahead and make segment 5 35 as well? Or, from a signage standpoint, from a enforcement standpoint, how do we, those short stretches are tough. Is it way to
Yeah.
make it more consistent, more like segment 3 to where, there's a period, or is there a method behind the madness of having .3?
Well, again, I want to just share that this is looked at and is done through engineering warrants and analysis. So it's not as easy as just saying, well, I want 35.
Sure.
We would have to go through and warrant to see if it would even work. based on the current manual of uniform traffic control devices. And so I would just, if we could recommend leaving it as we have presented here, based on the chart, and then we will always be looking at this and actually doing evaluations. Vision Zero has 5 E's, and one of them is of course engineering, another one is evaluation. So we are always looking and evaluating whatever work we do. Can we do it better? Does it need a change? Did we do something wrong? Especially if we're seeing crashes occurring or crashes not actually improving, then we're gonna go back and continue to tweak. So I would say, let us move forward as we had presented, and then we'll continue to monitor and evaluate it, and if it needs to, we'll be bringing that back to you for consideration
Okay.
at a
So-
later date.
So the chart is solid, we would just need to change the.
Yeah, that,
segment one
what's
on
in the map is
on the map.
incorrect.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this item?
I'd just like to point out one thing too. The proposed speed limits are based on the 50th percentile speed that we've observed at different points of the day. This is the speed that half the traffic is flowing already.
Gotcha. Question?
I would like to say, in a perfect world, we would hire more police, and the Convention Bureau would pay more for Metro Police. You know, we're understaffed and underpaid, so hopefully in a perfect world.
We actually have more police on than we did in 2018 when we were making more traffic stops.
We have any other questions on the item?
Just one question in terms of enforcement in the future. State law does allow us to do automated enforcement in school zones, correct?
That is correct, yes. That's one of the exceptions in state law. As well as curves, vertical, horizontal curves. S-curves.
Okay, if there's no other questions, do we have a motion? We have a second?
Second.
Any questions on the motion? Yes, Ms. Costones. We're voting on 5.7 only. Any other questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Thank you for your comments. Next item is item 5.8, authorization to reduce posted speed limits on Hermitage Avenue, Lebanon Pike from Korean Veterans Boulevard to the Wilson County line requested by NDOT. It has been proposed that we defer this item 1 month.
I move to, that we defer for 1 month.
Do we have a second? Are there any questions on the motion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? It is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move to item 6.1 on the regular agenda, authorization for vehicle size restrictions, no trucks over 8 tons on Bridgeway Avenue from Robertson Road to Swinging Bridge Road, requested by Councilman Eslick. I know, Mr. Eslick, you're here to speak on this item. Is there anybody else from the audience here to speak? Okay, if not, you have the floor.
Thank you. I put together a packet of some pictures, and the very first one shows an overhead of Bridgeway marked with a black mark and a yellow mark. The black mark is where, it's a different one, it's the one I handed out, it's not that, but you can see it up there too. The black mark shows the left-hand turn lane, which is on Old Hickory Boulevard or Robinson Road at that portion. And then the yellow is in the middle where they would first, the main thing is tractor trailers and big trucks. When they are in that longer line on the left, you can't see around them if you're turning left onto Old Hickory Boulevard. You either have to guess when it's available, or the person that was driving the tractor trailer, which is in the pictures that I put up there, said, "Oh, I'll wave them around when it's good." So I don't really know that we want other people waving people through when they think it's safe. I don't think anybody would put anybody in peril on purpose, but I don't think that's an NDOT rule where you want other people showing you how to get there. And it shows how difficult it is to make a left-hand turn onto Old Hickory Boulevard from Bridgeway. So the other pictures show how big the trucks are compared to that little median and how difficult it is to see around and get around. And I forwarded a video, which I'll forward it to everybody if y'all want to see it, of how difficult it is, how they have to swing around to get around that truck. The truck is longer than the median, the middle portion where they are supposed to sit when making a turn onto Bridgeway. So that's one portion of the problem, the safety in a vehicle turning off of Old Hickory Boulevard, or where it's named Robinson Road at that portion. But that's only one part of it. Another part's when they come down Bridgeway. Bridgeway is actually a sloped road, and the vehicles, as heavy as they are, again, I've got 3M Factory, I've got Sontara, I've got Berry Industries, I've got an asphalt plant, I've got a rock quarry, and many other. There's a tractor trailer training place back there. All these use giant heavy trucks. And coming down Bridgeway on that slope, all they have to do is not ride the brake, and they're going to break the speed limit. So it makes it unsafe for all the people that are operating businesses or live near Bridgeway to be able to do that, to be able to use that. And if you'll look at some of the pictures right there, one, I've got where this is outside of the rock quarry, where they advise with signs their people not to use Bridgeway, but to use Industrial Drive. But that really only covers their employed trucks. The third-party contractors that pick up rock don't have to adhere to this, and they do not. They go down Bridgeway as much as they do. A person just calling me now has actually purchased one of the radar banners where it shows your speed, and he has it permanently sitting out there showing them. But if you keep turning the pages, you can see where there's truck after truck. One person says in a matter of 14 at lunchtime today, 14 dump trucks. So the asphalt plant runs 24/7, and so does the concrete, the quarry and the concrete. So this is not a sometime thing. This also gets into the part where people that live near there do not have the opportunity for any quiet. We have these giant trucks that go down there. A common complaint from Rayon City is the smell of asphalt. I'm told that when the trucks, I'm told the smell doesn't leave the plant, but when the trucks leave, they drag the smell through the city. So this restriction would help with that too. I want to try to revitalize this area as a council person. And I believe one of the reasons that businesses are dying in that area is because of the big trucks and because of the fact that you really don't feel safe getting in or out of the businesses because of the giant trucks. If we were to restrict the trucks from coming down Bridgeway and make them use the road that is named Industrial Road and was made for these vehicles, that would help this community a lot. And that Industrial Road has a light, so it's safe. Vehicles can turn left onto there and not have to go through a median without a light. The traffic data for this area isn't good either. There are many crashes in this area with fatalities, and I don't have that data in front of me. But I've already asked about this, and I should have brought the email from Matt Purvis about it. But this isn't a great area when it comes to crashes. But I think you can just look at the pictures and see that the big trucks are too long for that median, therefore causing a hazard to people turning left onto Old Hickory Boulevard and the ones that are trying to get around them. So that's my case. That's why I've asked for this, and I'm looking to try to make this community safer and make the business be able to develop better with trucks not being able to go, except for delivery, up or down Bridgeway.
Thank you. We'll let staff provide their
Exactly, I was
position.
going to ask staff about
Yeah,
what
so-
we can do with weight limit to do
So-
this.
So the recommendation from NDOT, well, I'll let you all speak to your recommendation and the supporting information behind that.
If you so choose, you can approve a vehicle size restriction, no trucks over 8 tons, which would affect every tractor trailer, whether it's loaded or not. An unloaded tractor trailer is somewhere over 30,000 pounds, so that would affect everything. The Metro Code allows for deliveries, and there are some businesses on this road with loading docks, and they would continue to be able to use those loading docks. So there would be less truck traffic on this road, but it would not be an absence of truck traffic on this road.
The main one with a loading dock is at the very bottom of Bridgeway. It's at the.
That's correct.
It's the very, very bottom.
Yeah.
So it would make 90% of it clear of the truck. And there's a coffee company up top that would need bigger trucks, not 18-wheelers. And then Unlimited Windows would also have a tractor trailer for deliveries, being dropped off.
Unlimited Windows has the loading dock, and beside it is a car lot, and I presume they're bringing automobiles on car carriers?
It's not operational.
It's not?
They do not sell cars. They have cars blocking their entrances without wheels on them.
So how are we regulating a loaded truck versus an unloaded truck, or understanding like what that looks like?
The signage doesn't distinguish between a loaded truck or an unloaded truck. It just says no trucks over 8 tons. That's the limit that we have, that we use in our traffic schedule. We had a lower limit at one point that was, I believe, 5,000 pounds, and that we found that was just way too low, because even, a modern electric or hybrid truck is going to exceed that. So that when someone requests a vehicle size restriction, we use 8 tons as that cutoff. That's typically will permit, your UPS truck or your FedEx truck, the SU-30 size vehicles, but it's intended to exclude tractor trailer vehicles.
Any questions from commissioners? Mr. Corn.
Are there things within this that we're supposed to consider? Is this discretionary? Are we adding safety to this? Are we adding road condition? What should we be considering as we're looking at this?
I think the question is to whether heavy vehicles are allowed on Bridgeway. As an alternative, we could evaluate limiting truck turns at Bridgeway and Robertson Road. And that would, if we went that route, then we could perhaps address the concern of these left-turning trucks there, but still allow for trucks to use Bridgeway to egress from Bridgeway, and also to ingress Bridgeway by making a right turn from basically northbound Robinson Road. That might not be the solution that some in the neighborhood wish to see, though.
Inslee and Rayon, which are streets on either side of Bridgeway, are already weight restricted because of the same issue. So what it does is it funnels them to Bridgeway and allows them to go down there when the better alternative is Industrial Road. It's just right. You just go the other way about 200 yards, and then you've got a full, long, straight road that's level with a stoplight at the end of it. And it was named Industrial Road because that's what it was supposed to be. Bridgeway was more of a residential road before Old Hickory Boulevard was redone back in the day. And at that point, the reason they like Bridgeway is at the bottom it curves in a soft curve toward Old Hickory Boulevard, toward the Green Bridge going to Madison. And it's shorter in the fact that coming down that, they don't have to go over and down. But it isn't safe for the residents. It isn't more convenient for the residents. It's only more convenient for the truck drivers.
Yeah, there's an existing truck restriction on Rayon Drive, which you see there to the south, and then the other road, and both Rayon and the northern road. Remind me what the road name is?
Inslee is the other one.
Inslee also has a truck restriction, and both of those are residential local roads. Bridgeway itself is a collector.
Thanks for that background. I'm not sure that a no left turn would solve the problem, because I think they would just turn left anyway, and they're still going down the hill.
I've got the
That's what I'm
support of the
hearing.
factories back there.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I really need is signs, and the gentleman that was in the picture of that right there, he pulled up beside me and goes, "Why are you videoing me?" And so I said, "Just go on, I'll follow you. I want to talk to you." And after talking to him, he understood what I said, and he's worked back in that area a long time. He said, "Hey, if it's illegal, I'll go the other way." But he said he thought it was quicker, and I said, well, is it quicker or shorter? Because if you don't catch the traffic right, you're not gaining any time. You're only making a shorter trip with the same or longer time. Plus, he admitted that he's one that, because people can't see around him, that he gives them the signal when it's good for them to go, which I don't think is a good practice for anybody.
Thank you for that background. I think I understand, I think, why the department has recommended what it has here. But I don't think we should assume that our collector streets, just because they're collectors, shouldn't also be safe for the businesses and people who use them. And it doesn't seem like a major inconvenience to make folks use Industrial Road, especially since the council member in the neighborhood all seem to think that it is going to improve the safety in that area pretty significantly.
I'll add one thing, council member, that our initial resistance was based on the loading docks that we saw along this. So we thought, this would be eliminating people's access to completely outlawed trucks on here. If that is no longer, if the council member's gotten agreements with those businesses and it's not active, we don't have any resistance to it.
All right, thanks. I appreciate that. And yeah, I think the exception has always been the deliveries have access. So it's not going to cut it off even if it becomes active later.
So what happens, staff, if we do what the councilman's asking us to do? I mean, is this something we can do and at least try it? See if we can make things safer for his community?
We certainly can, and if this commission decides they want to remove a truck restriction, they can vote and remove it, and we'll pull the signs down and make that change in the traffic schedule.
In the event that the properties with the loading dock transact and new owners need those loading docks, what happens then? Would they need to come back here to get access, or what happens with that?
Again, with deliveries, they're exempted. And the one that uses the most of the deliveries, and they don't use many, it's more of a box truck than the big truck. Most of this traffic isn't going to Bridgeway or has nothing to do with Bridgeway. They're going to Swinging Bridge Road, which is the main road where all the plants are behind it. Is there a map that could show that, or can you move around on Parcel Viewer? Yeah, Swinging Bridge, see that big interchange right there where Bridgeway is with just past the JKC Auto Repair? That intersection right there is not only a railroad area, but it's also, again, with all those plants. If you zoom out more, you can see all the factories and all the plants and all the big buildings back there. That's where the trucks go. They're not going to Bridgeway other than going down that road and going past it to get down to Old Hickory Boulevard so they can get to the interstate and so they can get out. So they're only using this because it's an easier way. And if you zoom, you can come over and see where zoom out. Show them where Industrial Road is. It would be over to my right. Yeah. Yep, right there. That's Industrial right there. So all they've got to do is go over there, go down, and then make the right, and they're on Old Hickory Boulevard. It's a safer, better route for them to do that than it is to go down Bridgeway. It's just a shortcut for them. That's the only advantage there is the fact that they may save a couple of minutes in delivering their concrete, their asphalt, or the plant supplies. Most of the businesses on Bridgeway do not have frequent big truck deliveries. Most of them are small vans and I forget the name of the one at the very bottom, but they're the one that contacted first about it, and they said we rarely use our docks. We wouldn't have any trouble with it as long as deliveries were allowed.
If we did approve a size restriction, what's the enforcement like? What's the fines like? What does that look like?
I don't know that. The main thing is that we would need to put the signs up. I would personally contact the people that are in that plant area, already have a relationship with them, and let them know they know I'm doing this. They support that. But again, they can't control the third-party person for the most part. That's the one, Joe's dump truck that comes to get rock, or the people that are delivering asphalt, whether it's state or just some contractor using it. Those are the ones that we can't contract the most, and we would need regular enforcement on that. But this neighborhood is all over it, And I think given a chance, we could not only get a picture of the vehicle with the company name on it and start communicating to the companies that their drivers are not complying to the new rules, but then furthermore, look for MNPD to help us with that as well.
Any other questions? Ms. Costones?
The penalty would be the standard penalty for violation of the Metro Code, which is $50 per day per violation.
Thank you for that.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
So just for clarification, approval would be approving the staff's recommendation, which is no. Well, no, the recommendation from staff.
The item is for authorization of a vehicle size restriction on Bridgeway between Robertson Road and Swinging Bridge Road. The recommendation is disapproval. If you move to approve it, then you are authorizing a vehicle size restriction for this road.
Okay, so the motion is to approve a vehicle size restriction based on the
The
6 point.
request by
Based
the
on the,
councilman.
okay, I just wanted to be clear. Is there a second? Any questions on the motion?
Just one comment, maybe consider looking at the restriction on left turn there, just to clear that up in the future, but I'm happy to vote on this.
That would be part of it, because it wouldn't do any good to make a left turn there, only to be on a restricted route.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed.
Rayon City thanks you all.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your time.
Moving on to item 6.2, authorization for new valet lane, approximately 111 feet. A new valet lane that is approximately 111 feet and effective 24/7 at 312th Avenue South, and approval of 195 feet of new paid parking effective 24/7 on the east side of 12th Avenue South between Pine Street and Lowell Street, requested by NDOT. Emmy?
That is correct. Yeah, so this request is for the approval of the valet lane. There's currently a cutout that would be split between a valet zone and a paid parking zone. It would be a valet zone in the middle, and then the two sides would have paid parking. We counted approximately 9 spaces altogether for the paid parking, and 5 spaces would be for within those 111 feet for the valet lane itself.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak to this item? Any questions from the commissioners? Mr. Cornstick?
What's existing there?
I'm sorry, what?
What's existing there?
So there is an existing valet lane at this point, but it's throughout the whole cutout. So this would change it to where it would become a 5-space valet lane, and the rest would be paid parking.
So it's an active valet?
It's an active valet, correct.
We're not approving anything with the
Well-
valet, it's just the lane is gonna tighten a little bit, and then we're adding paid parking.
Correct. But it is, so let me just rephrase that, because there's some history that I need to say to that. So it is currently a valet operation, but we are permitting that today in the sense of it being 5 spaces only. And historically, as we were going through the paperwork that we adopted from Public Works, we realized that this location didn't have accurate filing at the time. And so this is our process of cleaning the locations up. We have around 40 of them. This is one of those that we needed to look into and have permitted today. As a follow-up to our findings in 2023, we called a community meeting with all operators to inform them of the new procedures and the expectations. We asked them to provide the applications for the locations. This was one of the locations that, for whatever reason, wasn't approved in the past, but was applied for in early 2024 and was waiting for the valet fee policy that was approved last month to come and be approved at this point. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, there's one important point to that also. This was configuration 3, which means that as per the previous policy, before the new one was approved, this didn't yield any loss of revenue. It was a $50 application fee. And by changing the ordinance earlier this year in April, and also approving the new valley fee policy, now this curb space is being utilized to the extent where there's a charge for it.
So the cutout is the valet part, and it looks like there's a cutout as well, somewhat for parking. How big will the lane be with parking?
It's a lay-by lane, so if you can look at the picture, the cutout that is closer to the curb is actually going to be the paid parking spaces, and then as the cutout, within the cutout, that's going to be the valet spaces. It's approximately 111 feet and 5 spaces total. And then following that is another similar setup to the front, which will be a paid parking again. The opposite side on 12th Avenue South is already paid parking, so this will just follow that trend.
Yeah, I guess my question was just where the paid parking would be. Is that an 8-foot spot already? Okay.
Yes.
With the curb.
With the curb.
Correct.
Any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any questions on the motion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Item 6.3, approval of smart loading pilot program requested by NDOT. Commissioners, I believe you have this in your packet of documents. Mr. Freeze, if you will.
Yes, Chairman, we are actually going to request to defer this 1 month so we can have some additional engagement. We don't want to sneak up on you. You're more than willing to ask questions. We actually have someone here from Automotus who actually is working on the pilot with us. So we're more than willing to go over any questions that you may have or answer and discuss the, actually we submitted an FAQ to you, and you can see that in your packet, an FAQ. We want to post that on the internet to make sure everyone sees that online. So we definitely don't want to sneak up on anyone with this program. So we are requesting to defer 1 month.
We have a motion to defer. Or first, any questions prior to the motion?
So moved.
We have a second. Been motion and second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It has been deferred 1 month. Item 6.4, appeal of sidewalk encroachment permit suspension for Munchies LLC, requested by Munchies LLC. Is there anybody? Yes, please come forward. We'll have you come next, if you don't mind. Please state your name for the record and provide comment on this item.
My name is Mina Farid. I'm the owner of Munchies LLC. How you doing, sir? How you doing? Yes, sir.
So yes, please provide any context or background as to your request.
When the NDOT officers came to give me this suspension of my license, they told me that I have so many tickets, this is why I get this suspension. So I went to the court and I started on the slow pay, and I called the collections department too, and I did pay some on June, and they got my card, and it's on the account for to pay off all the tickets.
Okay. Anything else related to this? Any comment you'd like to provide?
I fixed all my paperwork, and I don't have any problems with it right now. And I'm planning to not having any more tickets in the future. I'm following the rules and doing everything right.
Thank you. you'd like to come forward, please, state your name for the record.
I'm Officer Clint Gilland of the Metro Nashville Police Department. I'm assigned to the Central Bike Team. I've been instrumental in the vetting enforcement and the change of the policies and as they stand today. I'm very familiar with Mr. Fareed, as I have been a part of most of these citations. Myself and Officer Pulizano have issued most of those ourselves. And what we have come to learn is a big part of those citations that were being issued are being issued to some of his employees that are generally very, they have a hard time communicating with us. There's usually a language barrier. But once we issue the citations, we will get usually on the phone with Mr. Fareed and explain to him what these violations are. So he's aware of those citations. He's aware that they've been issued. And so they've accumulated over a period of time, as you can see, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 different violations have been accumulated, and each one of those had a judgment against him from the court. So there's been at least 20 different chances to fix it, but yet they continued to accumulate. And it wasn't until this appeal, or once he got served with this notice, that he decided to start paying the citations. It's been my experience that he has not followed by the rules, and I don't believe that he will continue.
You have a comment?
That's Richard Rooker, NDOT. I'm the one who sent him this notice, and after investigating this and talking with the police officers, staff recommendation would be to continue to revoke his permit to operate downtown.
And to add further information to this, Mr. Rooker, I had learned later on, the day that this notice was given to him, it was given to him both by email and by phone. So that night, I was patrolling with Officer Pulizano, and I found two of his employees at 9th and Broadway continuing to vent. And so my intentions were to make contact with him with a letter, only to find out that he wasn't there, he was with his employees. So we called him and told him that you've got to remove these cards, that your licenses are suspended. Little did I know, he already knew that. He continued to vent even after being noticed that his licenses were suspended, according to the conversation with Mr. Rooker.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Yes.
It's slightly embarrassing to start, but I do want to say that I have in the past talked about a war on hot dogs in the city. I don't necessarily think that that is going to impede my ability to sit and listen to this. Saying that, do you want to ask some questions about I counted 25 different citations that are in there. Can you describe what the citations were for specifically?
Sure, I can give you, there's a variety of reasons. One of the hot dog carts stands is well beyond the legal limit. It's actually shaped like a hot dog. It's about 7 foot long, so it takes up a large portion of the sidewalk. Another one would be, each time that you have a permit, that permit has a number that's assigned to that particular cart. It appears like several copies have been made, and the copies of the permits that are supposed to be issued to those particular carts are been mismatched, or maybe he's made different copies, and so maybe the proper permit for those carts are not in existence because of other copies from other carts that he has. Some of them would be expired. I think one of the last ones we issued was an expired sidewalk encroachment permit. They're the basic things that just keep getting violated, and it happens almost every weekend.
And is it, so it's every single cart needs to have its own specific permit? And then
yes, sir.
Does the company also then need a master permit, or is it just each cart?
So, Ms. Casones, did you want to remark?
So I believe that the obstruction is what has to have the permit. So I would think it would be each cart, but hang on, I was at the wrong end of the section. I was looking at the disciplinary action, not the initial permit grant.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you and understanding you. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I can speak up. I was just saying that I believe that the permit would have to be granted to each, obstruction. So, although it also does say to vendors.
Well, as an example, if I have more than one cart, each cart has to be inspected by the health department.
Yeah.
So each one has to have a health inspection report. You can't make one copy and distribute it among your other carts. It defeats the purpose, right? Same thing goes with the other paperwork. In each one of those, it clearly states that the paperwork has to be clearly posted on side of the cart, and often that has also been a violation where they're not displayed for you to be able to see them.
Yeah, the way it is phrased in the code is that there is a permit per vendor.
And each vendor has to have an ID card. Often they don't have those either.
So if there are multiple carts, do you have multiple permits then?
Yes, sir.
So which permit are we, all of them is what's in front of us right now, or is it just one?
Well, I don't think I understand your question, but I know that there's been 20 different violations approximately.
Yeah, I mean, but it sounds like it's multiple carts, and you're saying that a lot of them, it sounds like it's a copied permit across.
So as an example, at the corner of 9th and Broadway, he'll have more than one cart with more than one employee. And each one of those carts has to have the proper paperwork on display, as I've mentioned before. On one particular night, if we go and we find out that there's some violations, we issue citations, make notification, and then on another night, they return with either the same problems or additional issues.
I think to clarify the question, are all of his permits suspended currently, or is it just, okay?
Yes.
So there are, okay.
I think maybe just to clarify some of the confusion is there's a health department permit, but this is the encroachment permit. So
We're talking about encroachment.
Any of them could be within the encroachment area as long as they're permitted, and all we're looking at is the encroachment permit. And I think I'm familiar with this one because are any of these citations for like blocking traffic? Because I know on some council nights, this is in front of the cathedral, right? 9th and Broadway.
Yes.
Traffic often backs up there because there are a bunch of stops for food.
That's not something that we have
jurisdiction.
issued citations for.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it hasn't happened, but that's nothing that we've issued citations.
Okay.
You know, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have any more questions?
I do, I have maybe an answer to the question. I finally found it in 13, excuse me, 13.08040, B3D, which says vendors with multiple stands, displays, carts, wagons, or any other means by which to offer goods or services to the public must procure a permit for each space occupied. So it doesn't matter which cart it is, but the space occupied must be associated with a permit. So if you come and occupy a space on the sidewalk, regardless of which of your carts you use, and they do have to be permitted by the health department and inspected and all of that, unless they sell prepackaged food, then the vendor must have a permit to like encroach on or fill that space on the sidewalk.
So what the staff and the police are asking us to do is uphold the permit suspension. So if we do that today, is there a process that the vendor can come back someday and try again? Or not?
I mean, he can always apply for a permit to encroach into VN. There would be nothing that would stop him from coming back before you.
Well, how long is the suspension? Is that, we're asking for to suspend it, right?
Section C3D of the code says that a permit which has been revoked shall remain revoked for 1 year following the date of revocation. No vendor whose permit has been suspended or revoked may apply for a new permit during the period of suspension or revocation.
So how long is the suspension? 1 year. Okay. More questions?
I mean, I'm still unclear, because it sounds like he's operating multiple carts. So in the right way, that he would have then multiple encroachment permits.
So no, the vendor would have the ability to use his permit to occupy any space on the sidewalk. So he would have to have an encroachment permit to use one of his carts or to use multiple of his carts if they are located on the public right-of-way on the sidewalk. So it would be per the vendor, really.
Okay, so then,
So if you suspend or revoke his ability to to encroach upon a sidewalk, then he would not be able to do business as a sidewalk encroachment vendor. But I'm a little unclear because the letter seems to say suspension, and it's a suspension, not a revocation, right?
That's correct. It was a suspension with him having the opportunity to appear before this commission on appeal.
What is the term of the suspension?
For a year. It would have been suspended for a year.
Okay.
Or until the commission ruled on it. If he appealed the suspension for a year, then he would have, which he did ask for permission to come speak to the commission.
Ms. Haber's pointing out that there is also a provision in, could you scroll up a little bit? 1308.040 B3, go back down. Oh, C3, excuse me. It says a permit which has been suspended shall remain suspended until such time as the condition causing the suspension has been corrected to the satisfaction of the commission.
So it sounds like if he's suspended until he pays these and define that, please.
Yeah,
Or he hadn't paid them all.
Can I say something?
Yeah, hold tight. Well,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
give you an opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll read y'all all of section C, which is the suspension, revocation, or denial of permits section of the sidewalk encroachment code provision. And it says, any permit under this section may be suspended or revoked by the commission or its staff for any of the following reasons: fraud or misrepresentation in the application for the permit, fraud or misrepresentation while conducting the business of vending, conducting business contrary to the conditions of the permit and or these regulations, or conducting business in such a manner as to create a public nuisance or to constitute a danger to the public health, safety, or welfare, or cancellation of health department authorization for food or beverage vendors as applicable. 2, the commission or its staff shall consider the following factors in determining whether a permit should be suspended or revoked: the number of citations for violations of this section previously received by the vendor, and the number of previous suspensions and or revocations imposed on the vendor, and the number of occasions for which the vendor's permit was subject to suspension or revocation and was not suspended or revoked, and the seriousness of the violation or misrepresentation and the danger to the health and safety of the public presented by the vendor's misrepresentation, noncompliance, and or misconduct, and E, whether or not the condition subjecting the vendor to suspension or revocation is of a nature that has been or can be corrected. And then 3 goes on to say, which is what we were just reading from, upon suspension, revocation, or denial of the issuance of a permit, the commission or its staff shall deliver written notice to the permit holder or applicant stating action taken and the reasons supporting such action. So that would be Mr. Rooker's letter, and the right to reconsideration of that decision as set forth below. The written notice shall be delivered, blah, blah, blah. Permit which has been suspended shall remain suspended until such time as the condition causing the suspension has been corrected to the satisfaction of the commission. So that kind of implies a degree of discretion on your part as to which of kind of the above factors that could lead to a suspension you believe needs to be corrected. And then finally, 4, any permit holder or applicant whose permit is suspended or revoked or whose application for a permit is denied may within 15 days of the date of that action. So I believe that's our procedural posture here, is that the permit holder received Mr. Rooker's letter and requested an appeal to the commission as a whole within that 15 days, and a hearing of the request shall be scheduled for the next regular meeting of the commission. The suspension or revocation shall remain in effect pending the hearing. At the hearing, the permit holder or applicant will be afforded an opportunity to be heard and to present facts and witnesses on his or her own behalf. The permit holder or applicant shall not be entitled to an adversarial hearing or to examine any witness except those the permit holder may present on his or her own behalf. And then there is a little bit more information down in penalties, which is a little bit confusing, but in E2, under penalties, it says the permit of a person who offers merchandise for sale in violation of the regulation or who violates any other provision of this regulation may be suspended. The permit of any person who seriously endangers the health and or safety of the public by misrepresentation or violation of this regulation, or who is convicted of 3 or more violations of this regulation during any 12-month period shall be revoked.
We'll start with you.
I guess in that sense, so if staff suspended the permit, should staff be providing what would get them out of suspension?
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, that seems to be up to the commission's discretion, but I mean, maybe Mr. Rooker could make recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, I would want to hear why you had leeway to just revoke the permit as well, which you could have done. So what went through your mind for suspension versus just a complete revocation?
We just suspended the permit to give him an opportunity to file the appeal to come before you. If he had not done that, we probably would have revoked it. So, I mean, he has a right to appear before this commission and to answer any questions you may have or tell you, his side of the story, so to speak.
Do you feel as if he pays off fees, that's enough to come out of suspension?
If he would do things like he was supposed to do and not be a bad actor downtown, and I mean, he's gotten 25 citations, and officer's testimony here pretty much tells you, he's just not following the rules.
Ms. Woods, and then I'll go to you.
Do we have evidence that the fines have been paid? Yes, do we have evidence? How do we know that they've been paid?
I can tell you, speaking to the Traffic Bureau, that they actually advised me that he had paid some of those fees off and that he was on the slow pay. So I don't deny that information that he gave was to be factual. I do believe that that's true just based upon my conversations. But I do believe that there is quite a few that are still outstanding, is my understanding. Well, I think under the ordinance, it says that if you have 3 or more convictions, that in itself is enough for the revocation. We're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of 20.
So, and they're still not all paid?
No.
Councilwoman.
Thanks. I think it was 3 or more within 12 months. It's a little hard because these aren't, the issue dates on these they're by name and not date, so it's kind of doing mental math as we're going. By my count, just this year, there have been 4 or 5, if I'm reading this correct and flipping. Like 5 this year, but all in 1 month and all pretty close together. Maybe 6, but again, it's hard to tell. I think I'm a little concerned because I know y'all are out there a lot and checking everybody, and I don't recall having seen one of these come before us, and so I'd want to make sure that we're being consistent, especially since so many piled up before a letter went out. But I am a little curious on all of these. Is it that they are actually not permitted by the health department, or is it that it maybe wasn't displayed appropriately? Because I think those are...
We are permitted 100%. officers be harsh. Excuse me if you was asking the officer, but I want to speak, please. Officers be harsh on us in downtown all the time. If our paper is expired by one date, it's expired and they're gonna give us a citation, was my last citation for. It was expired on June 15th, which was Friday, and I can bring you the old paper and the new paper. And he gave me a citation for this. Another example of citation is having a speaker. Just speaker playing music in Music City. I know I'm not supposed to have the speaker, but everybody walking in downtown wanna dance while they're eating their hot dog. And we are in Music City. Why we are not allowed to have speaker? The volume is not gonna be crazy. I bring the volume down. Some of the other citations, like the officer explained, is because of the English barrier between my employees and the officers. They come and sometimes the paper is inside the court, not displayed because of the rain. And the officers comes there, they don't see the paper on the court. In their mind, automatically, this court is not legit. So they give us the ticket. They don't look for the paperwork inside the court. They don't ask, because I know they cannot talk to the employees because of the English barrier. But this is like some of the citations. We don't do crazy stuff in downtown. We have the health permit, which is most importantly. But the citations, like, we didn't do anything bad, you know? That's it. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that comment. Ms. Costones?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify some context for the council member's question. So when a citation is issued, that is actually different from the initiation of a disciplinary matter before this commission. Citations go to court. So these citations would have been adjudicated, was it environmental court or traffic court?
Environmental.
Environmental court. And so the dispositions, that's why they wouldn't have come before you, because they would have gone.
Well, I appreciate that. That wasn't my point, though. My point is that I suspect you're giving citations to other people downtown, too.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, there's been plenty of people in the same location that I've not issued because they were in compliance.
Yeah, I think my point is, I just worry that maybe we are not consistently applying this rule about the 3 and the suspension, and with the comment about we would have just revoked it if we didn't suspend it. I want to make sure we're not targeting one particular actor for suspension, and that what we're doing is consistent. And I sort of question whether this is consistent, especially since we sat on it for so long when it could have been brought before now.
I can explain that the reason why there's so many citations accumulated is because we kept having the same problems with the same person. And it wasn't until then that I brought to the attention of NDOT about the number of citations that were being unpaid.
And I, appreciate maybe the attempts to sort that out, but again, waiting 2 years down the road to then bring this when the statute clearly said it could have been brought earlier, and when we don't have any data that suggests that we're treating him consistent with the other people downtown, it does feel like maybe he is being singled out. And while I do think he needs to pay his tickets and we need to have better communication with his staff to make sure they're following the rules, I'm not sure I'm comfortable sitting here having a conversation about just throwing around the words revoking his permit when this has been going on for so long and nothing has been done yet to try and get it back on a better course.
The reason why I think the time has elapsed the way that it has is because I noticed that when I was going to court that he wasn't showing up. And so I took the initiative to go to the Bureau where they said that he started paying them to find out how many citations does he have now, because he's not coming to court. He's not following up on these. He's not being heard. So they drafted this to let me know, oh, wait a minute, it's a lot. And that's how this kind of initiated.
That's really helpful. I think my question to the department then is how are they tracking these? Because if we have a departmental policy that says or an ordinance that says we're supposed to follow a certain route, but then we're leaving it to the discretion of MNPD, which I appreciate your discretion. You are on the ground. I'm also out there at night on my bike, and I'm happy to not be writing citations and letting you have those conversations. But I, again, just want to make sure we are treating everybody fairly. We have already pushed everybody out of downtown, and this is his business, and he's employing people, and I can attest to the fact that lots of people eat these things because I see them waiting in this line.
I'd like to point out, this is not the first sidewalk vendor who's had his sidewalk encroachment permit suspended or revoked. In 2022 or 2023, I wrote a similar letter to the one that Mr. Rooker wrote for Munchies LLC. There was a CBD vendor downtown. If you remember, we had a lot of CBD vendors downtown at one point, and there was a particular vendor with a number of citations like this, where this particular vendor would not follow the rules. And so the department suspended his sidewalk encroachment permit. He was notified that he could make an appeal to the Traffic and Parking Commission, but declined to do so. So this is not a road that we haven't been down before.
And there was another gentleman before that, some years before that, who was a water vendor, an illegal water vendor, and his permit was revoked, I believe. When he did appeal it, he did come before the commission, and his permit was revoked.
I think to build on that a little bit and appreciate your efforts and your work down there, I think to your point, here in June of 2023, there's 7 in citations or instances from the 8th to the 30th that citations were issued. You know, at that time, maybe a letter should have been drafted then to help, or the checks and balances there to where somebody's gotten a 6. Hey, we need to help you out a little bit to revoke or send a letter to get this back on track. But to your point, to see things back in 2023 around this area, things have been happening. And to your point, yeah, this is Music City, but there's rules, and we need to abide by those rules first, and follow those rules that are in place to be able to operate and have a business in downtown. Yes, and yeah, I'm sure people would like to dance with the hot dog, but we've got to abide by that. I think a couple of clarifications here on this letter. There's a couple of individuals here, and Mr. Fareed, right? Is that how you pronounce it? You're the owner of Munchies, I'd assume. So these other employees, are we asking upon this suspension that he needs to clean up all? I'm assuming these MCs, these are individual permits for each individual person, or are these citations for those people? What's this MC 199 or 198 508? What are those numbers?
That's a citation.
So that's the citation.
Yes, sir.
So the permit is just, the permit is just with Munchies. And we have record that you've paid some of these, but we don't have an up-to-date. I think it would be appropriate to understand where he stands on these citations, and where we are. Getting that cleaned up first would be important to getting a path to where the suspension could at least have some sort of time. I think it's fair for the business if it's a year or whatnot, or whatever we're looking to do as a commission. And it doesn't have to be a year, but getting an understanding on that would be great.
I paid my employees tickets at once because they told me at the court that I can't put my employees on slow pay. So the different names, the citations that's been given to the different names, I paid them at full, and my tickets, I put them in the slow pay. So these 6 tickets or 7 tickets under the other names, I paid them in full already. And my own tickets under my name, I have them in the slow pay. So I paid like a big portion already, like the officers told you.
Question.
Mr. Fareed, why is it that you haven't, if I'm understanding correctly, FTA means failure to appear? Why haven't you appeared for these tickets? And then I have a follow-up question.
Yes, sir. I don't know if I didn't know that I have a court date for these tickets. They gave us a citation like for having a missed paperwork, you know, having a missing a paperwork or for the card being too big. Well, they gave us the citation and they don't say that we have a court date. It's not like a traffic ticket, sir.
I was a cop in Kansas City, and when I wrote somebody a ticket, I made sure that they understand when the court date was. So I asked this to the officer, when you issued the citations, did you give him information as to when the court date was?
1,000% yes. I always give the date and the time and include it. There is never any confusion about it, and I have every bit of that on body camera to confirm it.
Okay, follow-up question. How can we get this situation resolved?
Who's your question?
Not necessarily, this is to the gentleman there at the department, yes.
I think there's some understanding around the request for a suspension. And then if we're, obviously, I'm assuming the permit is suspended now, right? Yep. What are some requirements and some things that we're looking for to get him back in good standing and potentially be able to operate again, would be the question. Is that right?
I mean, I would think the paying of the citations, cooperating with the Metro Police Department, and abiding by the rules, just like we've asked him to do. I mean, he's already sat here and said he knows it's wrong to play his music, yet he plays his music. And all NDOT wants is for him to abide by the rules. And it's all MPD wants, I believe.
Is there any parameters to which we can restrict the number of carts for permits? Or, you know, I understand, I think it's just for the location. So, you know, can we restrict him to the number of locations that he can have with, you know, what's the rules there?
There are some other disciplinary matters where probation is an option, but that does not appear to be referenced here in 1308-040C. It really just seems to say suspension, revocation, or denial.
I think suspension is appropriate. We just need to understand how he gets off suspension, and it's clear to him
I mean, I think
that is.
you all can dictate the terms of when you think that the conditions have been complied with. So you can say, like, upon the date he's able to provide proof to NDOT of full payment of all of the citations, his suspension will be lifted or something. I don't know, like whatever you guys come up with.
Ms. Woods?
Two things. I've been on this commission for a few years, and there's a reason that the laws have been set up like they are downtown for safety, especially if the police are asking us not to do things that are already the law. This commission is real involved in pedestrian safety, and if the police are having trouble because laws are being broken continually, taking care of our pedestrian, that's a problem. Second thing is, I'd like to ask legal and staff, when things like this are coming up before us that may be new to some of the members here. I remember the commission, the things that you're talking about that we have done. We need some bullet points under here. Our staff is recommending that that we uphold this suspension, but we need some bullet points. Here's the code, here's the law, here's what we recommend. Just like, you know, what we've been through with the valet fees. I mean, we just need some refresher points, because we could go back and read the citations. We do our homework before we get here, but it is helpful when we get, we all pay attention to what staff is recommended because you've researched it. But we need some more points there. And, you know, if we're recommending that we uphold the suspension, and the policeman has done this and has body camera evidence too, I mean, those are things that are good to know in the reasoning and why the staff is recommending what we're doing.
Excuse me, ma'am, you're saying the safety of the pedestrians. What is having a speaker got to do with the safety of the pedestrians in downtown?
Yeah, I think as a responsible business owner, you need to follow the rules first.
No, I'm
right?
saying, for
I mean,
example, like
that's,
having expired paperwork, what I have
my
to do
tags
with
expire. I mean, and I get pulled over, whether it's a day or 10, it's a violation.
Ms. Wood's talking about the safety of the pedestrians in downtown. What it got to do expired paper with the safety of the pedestrians? For example, like, are we dangerous for the pedestrians in downtown?
So again, the rules around operating a business within the right-of-way are tied to pedestrian safety. And a part of that is having the right paperwork with regards to being a business owner. Now, the paperwork itself isn't going to harm or hurt the individual, but having a legal regulatory business under the law is common practice. So that's just a non-negotiable. I would entertain your comment, though, Councilwoman.
Yeah, I was just going to add, and also background on what these violations are would be helpful. Just to piggyback on Vice Commissioner or Vice Chair's comments. Because we do, and I think this came up last meeting as well, we're asked to make a decision, and, you know, these are issue and disposition dates, but we don't know if they've been paid. We don't know what they were for. We don't know if they were music. We don't know if it's an expired permit or a permit that just isn't totally visible, which might not be viewed the same way by this commission. But I would also add that on things like this, where NDOT is suspending a permit, it's really important that we make sure we're doing it consistently, because this has now happened twice in a row where an issue has come up before this commission. And we have said, well, we had these rules and it said we were supposed to do this, but we've never done this. And so then are people being singled out in ways that create inequities and cause confusion for business owners, whether it's a valet permit or a vending permit. It's on NDOT to make sure the rules are being followed consistently, because otherwise then we will be in the cycle where we have one business owner who feels singled out because they happen to be the one who got caught because you happen to notice it, but it shouldn't be on MNPD to catch that there are all these citations if it is NDOT who is supposed to be sending these letters.
Councilman, I'm gonna take you, then we're gonna wrap it up.
To add into that from the NDOT side, I mean, it should be pretty clear to talk about, you know, which permit is there and how many permits they have available. They're supposed to pay a fee for each spot that they're taking, and that information still hasn't been provided. I just want to see more to be able to make a longer term decision on this. I also think, sir, that you're not doing a very good job of helping yourself. These rules are here. They need to be followed.
And to that, I mean, these citations go back to 2022. And the fact that we're still operating to an extent shows the grace that's been given with the department and MMPD. I would like to entertain a motion to uphold the suspension, but do want to clarify that in next month's meeting, we have the relevant information that we're suggesting to be able to look at this wholeheartedly to understand what the suspension looks like and what he needs. I think proof of payment is one, just where he is at with that, if we can get that information. And then the location of the permit or where we are allowing post-suspension him to operate, or what that looks like, and then entertain a discussion around what anybody else would like to see.
Are we able to just defer this a meeting and that it stays suspended for 1 month while we work on getting information? While she's looking, I would like to see steps towards payment and then some sort of work to, make sure we understand the rules and understand to follow them. to be out of suspension.
Question. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I was just curious, the staff, where this gentleman is in the 1 year suspension cycle currently. Is he 6 months in or 5 months in?
I believe the date of the letter is like June, I can't read it from here, so it may.
June 7th. So
June
just getting
7th?
started.
Yes, that's when it began.
Okay, and then just something for the commissioners to consider. Whatever we decide, just think about if there are violations in the interim of this gentleman coming back before this body, what will be the penalty? Thank you.
Sorry. Don't we have to set the terms of the suspension?
No, I mean, so the
Yes.
question, has there been something since the documentation of the last suspension in May? Is that what we're asking for?
I haven't
Or
set up,
since
sorry, I didn't set up a single day after I got this letter. I didn't set up in downtown.
Just to clarify, if he's found to be operating additionally when he comes back in between the time, will there be even more penalties? Does that automatically take him to revocation or just something to consider?
I really wish we had some way to put somebody on probation here as well, so that way it's clear and we're watching it and we have a very good eye with that sense to come back to us. Just wanted to, the point was just the 1 year suspension. I don't think that that's anywhere in the code for us to say that. That would be if he's revoked. It would be 1 year.
I just wanted to, I think I found the most relevant part of the code section, which I think is 1308.040, C4. Any permit holder or applicant whose permit is suspended or revoked or whose application for a permit is denied may, within 15 days of the date of that action, notify the commission that the permit holder or applicant desires reconsideration of that decision. A hearing of the request shall be scheduled for the next regular meeting of the commission, that's today. The suspension or revocation shall remain in effect pending the hearing. At the hearing, the permit holder or applicant will be afforded an opportunity to be heard and to present facts and witnesses on his or her own behalf. The permit holder or applicant shall not be entitled to an adversarial hearing or to examine any witnesses except those the permit holder may present on his or her own behalf. So, I mean, it does appear to me that, well, it's saying clearly that the burden is on the suspended person. It does require them to initiate the appeal, and it does say that they are afforded an opportunity to be heard and present facts and witnesses on his or her own behalf. So I think they have to give you something to suggest that the allegations that led to the original suspension are not correct.
I'd like for this body to entertain a motion for suspension until a time that the party can show that he is in compliance with the law. So the things that are listed here, from what I'm understanding, the situation with the speaker, that can be dealt with relatively easily. But if I'm understanding correctly, there's a situation or a problem with the size of one of his carts or his carts, that needs to be taken care of. It should be a situation that the law should state that the permit should be in a place readily visible to the public. Okay, then that is, again, something that needs to be dealt with. So the permits need to be on the carts where they can be seen by anybody that walks up to them. Once all of those things are taken care of, then the suspended party and the board, or not the board, but the agent, NDOT, would come back and say that he has taking care of all the things that he needed to do, and then the suspension could be lifted.
Second.
So that was a discussion. Yes. Go ahead.
So I think, my understanding is when you have citations like this, there are payment programs, and I think I'd be comfortable as long as the employees are paid and he is current on his payment program, because obviously, right, one must sell hot dogs to pay for tickets. I would be comfortable with that, as long as he stays current on the payment program.
So I'll make a clarification, as long as he continues with the payment in accordance with the schedule that is set forth by the city.
So,
And I'll second that.
so I think, but the timeline that, are we at, can you get, what we are asking you is to come before this body again to show that you have the ability and you're committed to follow the basic rules and regulations related to operating a sidewalk encroachment permit
Yes, sir.
within the city. Do you need 30 days, 60 days? How long do you need to come back to present that to us?
30 days, okay?
So next month's meeting,
Yes, sir.
you can do that? And
Yes, sir.
then you can be here to witness that? And then you need to bring record of payments to that date.
Yes, sir.
And so that we can understand that the payments are current as we evaluate your suspension. I would encourage you to come in with the attitude of, you know, it sounds like you've got some people around here to want to see you succeed and want to see you operate and have a business down on Broadway. But people have responsibilities. People have an obligation to uphold public safety and uphold consistent regulations and things across the board down there. So this is our, I think this commission and NDOT and MMPD want to see you succeed. So if you could come in 30 days and just add to the motion that in 30 days that he would come and present. Ms. Castones, help us here, just
So are you suggesting that the suspension be extended for an additional 30 days until Mr. Farid can again appear before this commission and show proof of compliance?
Yes. Is that correct, Mr. Gibbs, Commissioner Gibbs?
Well, my understanding is that the suspension is in place now. Is that correct? Okay, well, he needs to come back in 30 days and show that he is doing the things that are necessary to get out of being in suspension.
Yes, sir.
If I may ask, if his permit's suspended, then he has no permit to put on a cart, and he will not be vending for the next 30 days. Is that correct?
That would be my expectation, that you not work until you get everything taken care of.
Yeah, I haven't been working since the day I got this letter.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I didn't work a single day in downtown.
We don't want to put you out of business. We just want you to comply with the law. That's all.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Would my fellow commissioners be open to the idea of him working with staff to maybe expedite that? So then it's not a full 60-day suspension, it's an opportunity to, you know, show them specifically that he is on a payment plan, that he has the available space to display his permits.
It's my expectation that he come back next month and if he's presented everything that's necessary and staff agrees, yes, they would need to work together, or he would need to work with them, but he can have his suspension lifted.
I wouldn't have a problem with him being able to get the suspension lifted sooner, as long as he came into compliance with the law.
Yes,
I think that's what all that we're striving for here.
Yes.
So then would the motion need to be that as soon as he establishes with staff that he's in compliance on the payment plan, he can vend without having to come back before this body?
Okay, I'll amend.
I've got a question also. I mean, how do we know? Because the police are the one that have been over and over and over issuing the citations. So are the police going to be consulted about, he's not down here, he's not working, or?
Sounds like they know each other pretty well. So
I don't think that there's a system in place even for anyone in here to even know. if he's continuing on the payment program. That, I would suggest, at least be put in place to see if he's going to maintain any compliance. Secondly, with the employees that he has coming, should we know who those employees are and the fact that they have their proper vendor cards and that they are also in compliance?
I think all of the employees are supposed to be part of the permit.
Yes, sir, that's
Right.
correct.
Yeah, the application requires the disclosure of the names of all the
But they're
employees.
not. It's part of the problem. They need to be also in compliance. Like, for example, if I go to his cart and it's not him there, like yesterday, it's one of his employees, they don't have any identification whatsoever. And they are therefore not in compliance, if that's the case. And they don't speak English. Should we somehow incentivize him to make certain that those employees have the proper paperwork before they show up? So, because they are covered underneath the employee name.
I think these are things that's frustrating me as a commissioner because some of this is new territory for us. We need the law laid out in front of us about what our responsibilities are. And when the police are coming to try to enforce what the council's passed, what the law is, we need to know, we need bullet points when staff's recommending something or not recommending something. And we need the legal interpretation of what the law is in the stuff coming out to us so we can study and be ready. So that means the second month in a row that, something's been thrown at us like this.
And this is also something that NDOT can be part of enforcement too, right?
Correct.
So it shouldn't just fall on,
Absolutely.
And that's, I think, where the burden needs to lie in terms of at least the tracking of all this. Any of these tickets that do get issued, there should be some sort of policy in place to see how many tickets we have for the specific violation.
So I will share, Diana Alarcone, if it is written by us, we are tracking it. If it is filed by the police, we are not necessarily aware, if they issued it. We have to go to the environmental court and ask them to provide us with the information, which we can do. So we will start doing that. It is our hope that in the future, all environmental tickets will be on the same system as our parking tickets. So it'll be issued and it'll be electronic. And there'll be a way for us to track everything. So in this case, if the police write one paper, they'll bring it over. We'll electronically put it in, send it over. So we're tracking everything and we'll have it. Right now, it is still done through paper. So I just want to bring it to everyone's attention. But we'll follow up with the court system and get that information of what has been filed and then what has been paid and what payment plans have been set up so we can provide that back to this commission.
Yeah, that's helpful. That does make tracking, when these are written, there's definitely a communication that needs to happen. And obviously, while you're out there, that's not something that can actually be done on a consistent basis. So the quicker we can digitize that, the better off we'll be.
So do we have an accepted motion, Ms. Costonas? Are we?
I'm sorry.
Do we have an accepted, is Mr. Gibbs' motion for him to provide the appropriate information to NDOT to,
I do have a little bit of a concern in that the language of the code says that the suspension shall continue until the commission is satisfied that the issues have been corrected. And so if you kind of delegate that back to NDOT or MNPD, then you're kind of putting them in the position
So then we just need to say that they need to work together and come back to us next month with,
I think that's cleaner.
let's do that.
I move that NDOT and Mr. Freed work together to get all of his citations dealt with, meaning that he is on a payment plan that will be moving him towards getting these tickets paid off. Any violations that are repeatedly happening, that they be addressed, whether it's a situation of size of cart, visibility of permits, the proper people working there, all of these things need to be addressed. And once they are, then you come back together and say that Everything has been taken care of. He is now in compliance with the law. He is paying his tickets. At that time, the suspension should be lifted.
We have a second.
Second.
It's been first and second. Is there any questions on the motion? None. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll see you next month.
Okay,
Thank
can
you.
I ask for one clarification?
Sure,
That
yes.
the determination of whether the correction has been made would be made by the commission itself.
Yes. All right, where are we? 6.5. Okay, item 6.5, approval of revised valet fee policy requested by NDOT. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Emmanuel Matias, NDOT. So in the previous meeting, we had a version of the valet fee policy that, with some of your comments, we were asked to amend them, which we have done so. There were 5 changes that were requested and made. Can we pull up the policy by any chance? So the request, and I can list through those. Page 4 was requested to delete the reference to attachment A, which excuse me, just waiting for it to pop up.
So while they're pulling that up, just to be clear, the edits that we mentioned are in red? Correct?
Yes, sir. They are redlined, yes.
Okay, and then the items in blue are things we need to add in?
So there were 3 minor adjustments that we, as we were reviewing the file, found. One of them is just a change of a word.
Yep.
The second one is a notarized indemnity and release form that we usually require, which was not there.
Yep.
And the third one was to amend the title for the penalties that would include licenses and permits, not only permits.
Has legal approved this?
Yes.
Yes.
So I believe everything that we asked for was added. Ms. Costones, if you could talk to, do we need a further explanation on the 3 blue items?
That's up to you, but that's why you need to take a vote on it again, is just because not only did they incorporate all the changes that were specifically requested by the commission members, but they've added a few additional things, which, are perfectly good, but you just need to vote to adopt it.
So on page 5, they added number 8, completed and notarized indemnity and release form.
Correct.
Which is pretty standard. Page 7, change location to valet operator instead of valet location. And down at the bottom, penalties for operating without, they added license or permit.
Okay.
And then on page 8, middle of the page, they added CPD.
Well,
I think there was a correction.
Yeah, that was just a correction.
Improper,
Correct, yeah.
Any questions from the commissioners on this? I know we worked very hard last month.
Move to approve.
It's been first and second. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. All right, so item 6.6. So we had some conversations last month around, if you could pull that up, the valet license policy. So there was a couple of options. The first option was they could come to us, and we address them as we did, or we have authority to adopt and implement, where is the proper term? Well, delegator, there you go, thank you. And delegate that to Ms. Alec, the Director of NDOT. I think a little context here, we went through a couple iterations, one iteration with a entity that there wasn't enough information there, and I'm going to go ahead and mention item 7.1, the consideration of rescinding or amending previous grant or of valet operator license for Garringtown Parking LLC previously approved. So it's my understanding if we approve to delegate this designee to NDOT, then we will then not need to address item 7.1 and 7.2. But if you may provide a little background to some added information from related to our motion last month, and then talk to item 6.6 and the pros and cons to us approving that.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I'm going to turn it over to Emmy and let him start, and then I'll be jumping in where necessary.
Great.
So just for historical background, our department took on the parking responsibilities sometimes last year, and that brought some changes forward. We started, and we have the vision and the path to a more modernized and standardized and mainstream version of the policies and procedures that we have in place. Started with the bag meter policy, which was approved earlier this year, standardizing the standard fees for renting the spaces. The second part of that movement was to get the valet fee policy approved, which was part of what we just did a second ago. And of course, we also are striving to go in electronic as opposed to the paper documents that we used to do in the past. So we had an industry meeting last year, met with all the industry leaders in Nashville, told them about what the goal is, explained that there needs to be applications that need to be filled out for 2024, outline what the applications would have to be, what forms they are required, and then also talk to the policy. At that time wasn't approved yet, but we talked to the policy and the new fee structure that was supposed to come into play. So that addressed the fee for the valet applications, and also to some degree the licenses. But last month, or a couple of months ago, it turned out that there was some confusion about the license part as well. So we wanted to make sure that it's understood that they're separate things, to where a license is something that an operator is receiving to operate within the city of Nashville and Davidson County, and that the valet permits would be issued, and it's only one of them that is required per operator. And then the valet permits per se are requested and required for each location separately. So that's been cleared out, and as far as part of the next step in modernizing and standardizing our procedures, the valet license policy is here in front of you today. And what that would do is that would propose for NDOT to be approved by commission as a designee to be able to review and interview the applicants of the valet licenses, i.e. operators, and then provide their permits, or provide the licenses. And so what you would vote on today would be the valet license policy itself that would allow us to be a designee. We have some supporting documentation for you, which you can see on the screen. Exhibit A is our internal SOP that outlines the procedures and the requirements. And I can speak to those if you'd like. Furthermore, we have, should I just go through these? Okay. So the procedure, the way that is written would be that NDOT staff receives request for new valet operator within Davidson County, whether via email or phone call, or by receiving an application form or packet filled out from the applicant. NDOT staff will conduct throughout application review of the submitted documents as per application.
Just cover the bullet point stuff. Don't go in detail, just cover this.
That's what I'm doing. So NDOT staff would conduct the application review, make sure that all the submitted documents are supplied. If the documents are satisfactory, the designee would conduct an interview with the operator, potential operator. If that would suffice, NDOT would send the packet to the NDOT finance team, and they would invoice the license fee of $100. We would then receive a receipt from the finance department confirming that they have indeed paid and the money has been deposited. And once confirmed, we would issue an official valet operator license that would be issued for the new valet operator. As a supporting document to the SOP that I briefly described, if you would please scroll down, you would see the receipt for the payment of the license fee, which is $100. And then also you would see the version of the license, or draft of the license.
Keep rolling.
I keep going now. So this here is the application form in itself. This is where technically the packet starts. Following that would be the review and the interview. Following that would be the payment of the $100 and the submission of the $100 receipt, which is the page following. And then following that would be, so this is what the receipt would look like. And once that is received, the department would then issue a license, which is Exhibit D, and that's a draft or an example of what it would look like on our end.
So if I may at this time, Mr. Chair, speak to item 7.1. At the last meeting, there was a overall discussion and a belief that this particular valet operation was operating with the license, when in fact that was not true. So we owe y'all an apology because we did not have our facts available at that time. So I do apologize because I understand that that was the reason why your meeting was so long. So let me just personally apologize for that. But what in fact had happened is that there was a decision made by the owner of the property to bring the valet in-house. The next day, he had his staff come down and actually submit for a new license. At that time, he filled out the application that we had and also provided us with a check. And per our finance policy, we are required to, once we take a check, we are required to deposit it within 48 hours. And our finance department did do that. They actually cashed a check. So in essence, when we cashed the check, we pretty much said, your license is good. And that is why that particular individual and company was actually feeling like they were operating with the license in good faith. We had already submitted for their permit and we had that in place as well. So we really do not feel that the decision and the road that y'all took last month was accurate because we failed to provide y'all with the appropriate information. We do apologize for that, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to provide you with what the new policy would be, as well as what the SOP would be, that the standard operating procedure we would be following, the application, as well as what the invoice looks like, and then what would be the final license that they would receive in order to operate. And then there's also the annual permit that they would be receiving as well, which is what they're paying for the use of the space. And we did wait for 2024 for the permits that everybody has been invoiced, and that was because we were waiting for the change in the valet fee amount. But everybody has been invoiced, everybody is paying, so we're up to speed. Yay on that, but my apologies again for us not providing you with all the appropriate information and causing y'all much pain and agony at the last meeting. So I'm gonna have to also owe y'all all dinner one night to make up for that, because I understand it ran 7:18, so I owe y'all for that as well, so my apologies.
Mr. Chair, so what do we need to do then to get to approve the revised valet fee policy?
So we've already approved item 6.5.
Okay,
So
Yes.
if we vote to approve item 6.6 to assign NDOT as the designee, then item 7.1 and 7.2 would then defer to them moving forward.
I
I'd
just
like to
want to
put-
clarify one thing, because I do think if you decide on 7.1, that you would do, because you did give direction to staff, and it is actually a motion that was taken about fining Mr. Thank you, Giarratana. Y'all would need to rescind that back if y'all wanted to move in that direction or give us direction to, or amend it. So if you wanted to rescind or amend that, that is an action we would have to have y'all take, because there was a motion made at the last meeting.
No matter what, yeah.
So that I would ask for. If you pass this now, item 7.2, you would not need to approve because you approved that policy passing back to us, and we would be able to take care of that one, and that one could be removed off of the agenda. But I would need you to take an action on 7.1.
We got to vote on 6.6 first. So
Yep.
are there any questions around item 6.1, approval of new valet operator license policy, where we're designating NDOT as the designee?
I just have one thing that Teresa had shared with me this morning that I would like to add to the policy, and that would be under purpose, that it would actually read that the Traffic and Parking Commission is establishing the Director of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure Department as their designee for approval of the valet operator license as per the standard operating procedure of 103.003.2024S, which is what the policy, which is the standard operating procedure that is actually behind this policy in front of you. And that way it's just very clear. And it meets all of the code requirements as well. Thank you.
Neil?
How many active licenses are out there, valet licenses?
Operator licenses?
Yes, how many?
I think it's
13, I thought?
it's 11, but with these two, it would be 13.
13,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm counting ahead, excuse me.
Yep.
Any other questions?
What's the reporting to us going to look like?
That will actually be a spreadsheet that we will be providing you along with the information. So if we receive a new license, it'll have the name of the individual, their actual address, where they, what they do and all of that, along also showing all of the documentation was taken as provided by code, and then basically whether it was approved and denied. Because remember, there is a process that if we were to deny it, why we denied the license, they have the right to do an appeal through you. So we would be providing you all that information in case that if they did decide to appeal and bring that back before this commission. We'd want you to have that all in advance. And we would report that monthly. And so if we didn't receive any requests for license, we would just notify you that we didn't receive any requests for license.
So if I walk in and I want to get an operator's license, tell me how long it takes for that process to take place, and specifically the investigation portion of it. How is that done to make sure that the person that's coming in, or I, as I come in, am telling you the truth?
So basically, they have to have all the documentation available to us before we would even start the review of the application. So that, I don't know, it's hard to say when the clock would start, but let's pretend they walk in and they have everything. That would start the clock. We do have to do some background investigation. I have to send it over to make sure it's meeting all of our insurance requirements as well, and done that. So I would say give us anywhere from 7 to 10 days in which to properly get all documentations verified and reviewed. And there may be some exceptions to that, but I think we could probably get them done in close to a 2-week time frame to do the proper review and everything that would be required.
And then once that's done, do you notify the applicant that everything's taken care of? They come in and write the check?
That is exactly right, and that's the misstep we did before. That was a big misstep, yes, sir.
Any other questions?
For Transportation Licensing Commission, do they publish who has licenses on the website for the different permits that are available? Trying to think of that.
I don't think we do, but, I mean, we certainly make it available. I mean, it's public records. There is some information within what they provide because it's a little bit different. There is some information that we get from different individuals that are tied to TLC. So it depends on which certificate of convenience or permit we gave. We cannot share some of that private information. So we do not put a lot of stuff from TLC out into the public for that reason. But if somebody wanted, for example, a list of every single, entertainment vehicle that was out there, we would be able to provide it. If they wanted a list of all the pedal carriage companies, we would be able to provide that.
So it's on there. That would be something that I would, if we're giving y'all back this control over it, like publishing it on the website of who is a valid operator.
Okay.
Just in the same sense of how this is set up here, what the company name is, what the contact is, and their address. Just so that way people, if they do have questions or want to make complaints, they understand where to do that.
We certainly can do that. Thank you.
Do we need to add that under monitoring and reporting potentially?
Under commissioner notification? No, we'll just make it a standard practice for us.
Okay. Well, I'm saying do we need to add
I
that
know
to this policy as a designee?
Well, it is part of we do have that as a requirement on all the valet stands.
Okay.
So that information is readily available. So if someone uses a valet company, that's a standard requirement. We will just make sure we add it to our website.
Commissioner Gibb, you good? Commissioner Gibb?
I just don't want us to have another situation like this where someone thinks that they're doing the right thing and it appears to us that they're not. Right. Something maybe as simple as making this comment down here, certification. I certify under penalty of law, making up that paragraph emboldened and making sure that the person that's coming in understands that just because you walk in the door and you're making this application, if you're operating right now, you're in violation of the law.
So we have an affidavit that addresses that, and that is required for them to sign and date as a part of the packet. So that addresses the compliance with all the rules and regulations. It should be. And we'll bold that. Correct.
Yes, sir. We can do that.
Oh, it's not in there? Yeah, that's it. Yes, sir. That would be it.
But he's asking us to bold it, so it's very clear.
Can take care of it. Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the commission? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? It's been first and seconds. Any questions or comments on the motion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Do we need to go back and address the fines that were levied?
Yes, so item 7.1, consideration of rescinding or amending previous grant of valet operator license for Garitana Parking LLC, previously approved on June 10th, 2024. Do we need to go back and, does everybody understand what we approved last month or what we motioned? If we do, then is any questions or comments to what we're doing here? Yes.
Can we just reread what our motion was and now we're rescinding it?
Absolutely.
Do you have that?
So the motion, so Daniel Harper with Garitana Parking LLC spoke to the commission regarding his valet application, answering questions from the commissioners. Brandon Botswan, I'm sorry, is that correct? Okay, I'm sorry. Of Last Parking provided clarification surrounding the licensing process, proposed two valet locations, 505 Church Street and 900 Church Street. It was identified that as of March 1st, this applicant was operating without a license. Commissioner Gibbs moved to approve the license subject to the company voluntarily paying the fine established, that the regulatory body send notification to the business, and that they come back to this commission for the possibility of probation. Commissioner Gonzalez seconded the motion. The motion was approved with no objection. So looks like the motion that we approved was that the license, we would approve the license subject to the company voluntarily paying the fine established. And then that NDOT send notification to the business, and then that they would come back before us with the possibility of probation upon our evaluation and interview. So what we're asking today is either amending that or rescinding that motion from last month, and then the designee would then, they're gonna operate,
They have a license.
they have a license now, so my opinion, we need to rescind.
It would be staff's
appropriate,
recommendation
but-
to ask this commission to consider rescinding that particular item.
Okay. Any questions to that?
No, I would move to rescind based on what we've learned.
So we're gonna operate under the idea that the permit was already approved and we didn't approve a permit is,
I'm going to let Teresa speak to the legalities of that.
So it appeared at the commission meeting last month that no permit had been approved or even kind of purportedly approved, and that they therefore kind of knew that they were operating without a permit for that period of time. License, I'm sorry. I should be saying license and not permit. And so when we went back and looked, I believe there was an invoice similar to the example one that's in your packet. And it was stamp paid like around the time of their initial application. And if you look at this bottom paragraph here, it references Metro Code 1241.020 and Metro Code 1241.030, and like kind of states the language of that. So I think we concluded that basically to them, this stamped paid invoice with that language on it probably looked like they had a license. And that was maybe something that the representative of Giarantana Parking LLC, who was actually appearing at the last month's hearing, did not know.
Correct. So originally, they filed for their license on March the 7th. We took the application and the check at the same time. That got turned over. That check was actually deposited in the bank that day and cleared immediately the next day. So effectively, they felt like they had done everything they needed to. It was staff who made the mistake and should have not accepted the check and taken the license and reviewed it as per the standard operating procedure that y'all just approved that's tied with the policy. And we should have done all the review and everything before we even brought this to you and let them know that they cannot operate until this comes before this commission. So it was actually staff that messed up on that, and that's why we are recommending that you rescind, because technically when we cashed that check, we gave the impression that the license had been approved, and therefore they operated under that particular knowledge. So it was our mess up.
And if I may add to that, just from a legal perspective, I think I talked some last month about the de facto versus de jure distinction. And so if it appeared to the applicant that the staff of NDOT had the authority to grant them that license, and it appeared to them that it had been granted, they're entitled to rely on that. Even though the staff didn't at that time have the de jure responsibility to actually make that finding. It should have been the commission, but because they acted as though they had it and the applicant perceived that they had it, if they were to take that to court, that would be honored.
What do we need to do to move forward now?
I'm actually not sure an rescission is entirely necessary. I was kind of thinking you would just amend the motion to delete the condition of having to make the voluntary payments.
But they had a license before, it shouldn't, it sounds like the license was granted before it came to us.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true, but I think that there's no harm in y'all ratifying that since that is better form. And so I think there's no harm in saying the license is granted, but not subject to that payment condition.
I'm going to defer to legal on whether we rescind.
It's probably
or
fine
amend.
either way. It can be legal either way. It just depends how you phrase it. You can either just rescind the whole thing and just say,
I'd rescind it.
okay, that's fine.
Do we have a motion to rescind, or do we have any more questions?
I mean, I would think amending would be cleaner just because we just approved the new policy. So then we were the ones that approved, but we were affirming it. We will affirm that we're there.
Are we covered either way? I'm neutral, as long as we just move forward.
Yeah, I think the difference is if you amend, then you are specifically having the commission ratify the perceived prior grant of the license by the department. And if you, if you amend, that's what you're doing. If you rescind, then all that they have left is just the department's prior perceived approval, which, again, they could probably take to the court. But it's a little less certainty for them. But why would they take it to court? They wouldn't, because we're not opposing it, but...
Not opposing it, we're not going, to push the fine or the penalty to them, so.
Given that we've now acknowledged that we understand that at the time, the way it was approved was not exactly correct per the code, in their shoes, I think from a business certainty perspective, I would probably want a clear motion granting the license. But again, they have the license already, as has been pointed out, so.
Wouldn't it be, I think, making it clean of the date that they got the license, so that way they are aware of, like, this is the date that it starts. Here's
That's a
your
good
year.
point. I mean, I don't know if you have the March 7th?
Was there any harm done to the company?
No, sir.
Everybody makes mistakes.
Thank you for that.
So do we have a motion?
To rescind our prior findings.
Is there a second? It's been motioned and second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It is passed. So item 7.2 defers to the will go to the designee. Is that my understanding? Okay. Item 8.1, approval of new parking operator subcontractor for Metro Garages, requested by the Nashville Downtown Partnership. Please state your name for the record.
Mr. Chair, I need to recuse myself from this since my husband has potential legal claim against Metropolis.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that.
Hello, I'm Jack Malone, Director of Transportation for the Nashville Downtown Partnership. And going through our timeline on our PowerPoint here, in October, our currently contractor, SP Plus, was acquired by Metropolis Parking. At the end of the year, NDP's contract with SP Plus was up for extension or renewal, and it was agreed to operate on a 30-day cancellation. On May 16th, Metropolis's acquisition of SP Plus was completed, with Metropolis being required to divest certain contracts by August 14th. In early June, NDP requested proposals for a parking operator. June 28th, the RFP was closed with 4 operators submitting a bid, or submitting proposals. July 3rd, the decision on the parking operator was chosen by a committee that consisted of 2 NDP board members, NDOT chief engineer, NDP, and 2 NDP staff members. Today, as per the contract with, between NDP and Metro government, we are seeking approval of the choice of that parking operator. This would give the NDP the ability to enter into contract negotiations with that operator for the new parking operator to begin daily operations on August 14th, the divestiture date. The committee's choice was based on the following criteria: experience currently and historically operating similar facilities, capability to meet insurance requirements, consistent internal operational procedures for cash handling, revenue controls and reporting, variable costs analysis of payroll taxes, benefits, management fees, professional services and insurance, and the ability to meet program budget goals and effectively staff facilities along with efficient and professional performance. With that being said, we are seeking for approval of Parking Management Company, or PMC, as our parking operator.
Thank you. Is there any other people in the audience who'd like to speak to this? Questions or comments from the commission?
Can I, as a newer member, just get a quick rundown of our contract and what our role is here? We approve their operator?
So I was not asked to prepare that before this meeting, and so I have not done so. In general, we do have a contract with the Downtown Partnership for the management of the downtown garages. A lot of the responsibility belongs to this commission in the charter that is delegated to NDOT staff and to Downtown Partnership as their contractor, and then I guess to PMC as Downtown Partnership subcontractor. So I think they're just out of an excess of caution wanting you all to kind of approve their subcontractor to make sure that.
Correct. It's section 119 of our contract with Metro.
Thank you, that helps.
It basically says that we have to get approval of that operator.
Okay, very good.
And we'll be back before you on the actual contract, because y'all actually have to approve the contract before we can take it before council.
I don't believe that's actually the case.
No?
No.
It
does not.
The subcontract would just be a contract between Downtown Partnership and PMC. Metro wouldn't.
Oh, I'd like for the contract to come back before y'all. Okay.
So what are we looking at here?
Approval of the negotiation with PMC.
We're approving that y'all can negotiate with them?
Yeah, you're proving us to move forward with them as our parking operator and negotiate contract.
Just off of a PowerPoint?
Well, so if I may, the contract with the Downtown Partnership has been approved by council.
Yes.
And that came through council. And typically when you have a contract with somebody like the Downtown Partnership, there are subletting requirements in there. And so per the terms of that pre-approved contract, we typically have the right, and there's probably language in the contract, though I don't have it before me, that says something, that we have to approve it, but it can't be like arbitrary, right? There has to be reasons if we don't. I will just note that council members receive numerous frequent complaints against all the parking garages downtown, with the exception of those run by the Downtown Partnership. And we do not get complaints against those. So we, I think, overall have been very happy from a council member perspective on the Downtown Partnership's running of the garages. Because as many of you know, the other garages are not without complaint.
I will also let you know we have no objection.
Will this cause a rate increase?
No.
That would be up to you, and you would have to separately authorize that.
Generally speaking, we usually bring rate increases to y'all periodically, and y'all would approve those.
Within your jurisdiction under the charter.
So the contract with the Downtown Partnership is with the city of Nashville, not with the Traffic and Parking Commission?
Correct.
It may actually be signed by the chair of the Traffic and Parking Commission. I'm not sure.
No, it is actually signed by the chair, but it is between Metro
I guess I would say the charter provides that this commission has special authority to enter into management contracts for the Metro-owned garages. So I think because of that, that's why we had the chair or former chair of this commission be the signatory on that contract. However, it's really, the Metropolitan government acting by and through the Traffic and Parking Commission. It's not a separate existing legal entity or anything like that.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
I mean, just so for clarity, we're just approving your subcontractor. As far as you're aware, there's no changes in cost or outcome to us as the entity that has the garage. Our numbers should generally stay the same of what was provided to us last month.
Relatively the same. Relatively the same. We compared them via cost in the sense of variable cost analysis. We looked at their payroll taxes and benefits, management fees, professional services, and insurance, which are the costs that we do not control, such as like payroll taxes. Say, for instance, one company may have 25% payroll tax, next company may have 28, as an example. So those are the costs that were taken into effect, such as staffing. NDP controls those, so the staffing would not have been taken into effect there. Management fees, each company may have had different management fees. We looked at the cost total of those as a sum and took that into a benefit along with the other factors that we had listed here.
Did you go back to the slide where it's
Yeah,
the
did y'all do a
committee?
comparison to
Who's
what
on the committee?
SP Plus was charging to what
Yes.
PMC would?
Yes.
Who were the companies that were up for it? PMC and who else?
PMC, LAS.
Go back to the
AAA.
previous slide. I think it was what said that. Who's on the committee?
2 NDP board members, one of which also sat on Traffic and Park Committee years ago.
I think there it is.
Yeah.
Is that it? A parking operator was chosen by a committee that consisted of. And this committee is picked by the council, or who decides who's on the committee?
I think you all are appointed by the mayor's office and confirmed by the council?
For this committee?
No,
No, that's
Who
not
appoints
right.
this committee?
Downtown Partnership.
we did. It was
Oh,
in-house.
I'm sorry, the committee that did the selection between the,
Yeah, we were trying to be fair and partial
that
there.
made the award of the subcontracting contract.
So does the subcontract have to follow Metro bidding, public bidding
No.
requirements? They could pick this however they want.
I mean,
It's defined by the contract.
I think that the process they used is very similar to the Metro process for conducting an RFP, but they're not required to do it that way, but because they want to get your approval,
Yeah,
I
we
think they chose to do it that way.
made every attempt to follow those rules.
Thank you. No speakers, right? You weren't here for that. Maybe you were. But any other questions? I'm poking the bear, I'm sorry. I think if we, for next, and I don't know, Neil, this is, and Councilman or Commissioner Gibbs, just understanding what this is in the future would help, or that process. And I don't know who that falls on, but we're just,
We actually
I live
renew
in
their
a-
contract on an annual basis in November, because it's a year-to-year contract with Downtown Partnership. So we can actually cover all of that when we bring that contract back before you in this year. So we'll bring all that through with all the up-to-date amendments and or any additional changes to the contract. And we can share out this contract as well at the same time.
Thank you for your outstanding work. Do we have a motion? Second? It's been first and second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
I want to be clear that the motion is to approve.
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other items we need to address? Captain?
Motion to adjourn?
So moved. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.